Chapter 1951. The two middle-aged women stared at Shangguan Mu, or from afar as surprise and doubt filled their eyes. One of them said, "The zither of the demonic cry is a treasure that was bound to the third ancestor's life in the past. It's also a symbol of the third ancestor's identity. Now that the zither has appeared with that woman, and that woman has quite the mastery over the way of music, is she the reincarnation of the third ancestor?" As soon as she mentioned the reincarnation of the third ancestor, the middle-aged woman became excited. She was filled with eagerness. The other middle-aged woman locked onto Shangguan Mu, and studied her seriously. She said with great certainty, "No, she's not the reincarnation of the third ancestor. She's just someone who obtained the third ancestor's treasure by chance. If she really is the reincarnation of the third ancestor, the artifact spirit of the zither of the demonic cry would have awakened long ago, and it would have returned to the sect. Sigh, she really isn't the third ancestor's reincarnation. Although she can use the zither of the demonic cry, she hasn't been able to unleash any of its power. Moreover, she only has a connection with the zither of the demonic cry. It hasn't accepted her as a master yet. However, obtaining the zither of the demonic cry from the third ancestor can be regarded as her fortuitous encounter. At the same time, it's a form of recognition from the zither of the demonic cry. This person should be accepted into our sect." As they spoke, the two middle-aged women flew towards the border fortress of the divine kingdom of Ping'an. They moved extremely quickly, crossing an extremely great distance with a flash and appearing before Shangguan Mu silently. The two middle-aged women hovered in the air. They concealed all of their presences, making them seem like ordinary people. It was impossible to discover them with the senses of the soul. Their gazes were fixed on Shangguan Mu. They paid no attention to the chaotic battlefield around them. Shangguan Mu see you, and the others saw the two middle-aged women who had suddenly appeared. Their expressions all changed suddenly. Siyu, Rui Jin, and the others immediately stood before Shangguan Mu. They were vigilant. They did not do anything. They could sense the power of the two middle-aged women. "Seniors, may I ask what brings you here?" Shangguan Mu asked. Although she spoke, she did not stop playing the zither. "Child, do you know the origins of the zither in your hand?" one of the middle-aged women asked. Her gaze towards Shangguan Mu was filled with gentleness. Although Shangguan Mu's eyes, Shangguan Mu's eyes, Shangguan Mu's Shangguan Mu's. Shangguan Mu's eyes narrowed when she heard that. She already knew that the zither of the demonic cry was not as simple as it seemed. Shangguan Mu's ancestors. "I don't know. If you're willing, please tell me, senior," Shangguan Mu said, multitasking. He used the zither to disturb the minds of the Empyrean demon cult's army as he conversed with the two women. The middle-aged woman looked at the zither of the demonic cry, and a sliver of reminiscence appeared on her face. She said, "The owner of this zither was a renowned peak expert in the saints' world in the past. At the same time, she was one of the three ancestors of our Taoist sect of divine sound. We called her the third ancestor." After a moment of silence, Shangguan Mu said, "I won't lie to senior. I obtained the zither of the demonic cry by chance in a lower world. Since it belongs to your esteemed third ancestor, I will return it to your esteemed sect once the battle is over." Shangguan Mu had no other choice when she said that. The strength of the two women before her was unfathomable. If they wanted to forcefully take the zither, she would not be able to keep it. The middle-aged woman shook her head with a smile. "We happened to pass by this plane and came across the third ancestor's life-bound treasure by chance. As a result, we've come to have a look. We don't want to take the zither of the demonic cry away. The zither of the demonic cry is rather special. It was nurtured by the third ancestor's life-bound flames for many years before slowly transforming from an ordinary object. It possesses a portion of the third ancestor's vital energies, which is why the zither of the demonic cry is like a saint artifact, yet not a saint artifact. It's like a god artifact, yet not a god artifact. It's just that with the third ancestor's death, the zither of the demonic cry vanished as well. Originally, we thought that the zither of the demonic cry had been destroyed in that battle, but we never thought we'd come across the third ancestor's treasure here again today. The woman paused when she reached there. She stared at Shangguan Mu, with brimming interest, and said, "Since you obtained the zither from a lower world, it means that you are fated with the zither, as well as our Taoist sect of divine sound. Even though our Taoist sect of divine sound is extremely strict when it comes to accepting disciples, and we have to go through a series of selections, you can directly join our Taoist sect of divine sound because you obtain the third ancestor's zither of the demonic cry." At this moment, the other middle-aged woman said, "Child, prepare yourself and come with us to the Taoist sect of divine sound." The Taoist sect of divine sound is located in the central region of the Skyfire Plain. It's extremely far from the Cloud Plain, so you won't be able to make it there by yourself. As a result, we can only take you with us. "No, you can't take Sister Mu or with you," Siyu said firmly. "Seniors, I'm busy right now, so I can't go with you to the Taoist sect of divine sound. Moreover, I haven't agreed to join the Taoist sect of divine sound," said Shangguan Mu. The two middle-aged women ignored Siyu. They said to Shangguan Mu, "You've obtained the third ancestor's treasure, so you must join our Taoist sect of divine sound. Moreover, joining our Taoist sect of divine sound is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for you. As for what you're busy with, it must be the battlefield here. That's simple." With that, the middle-aged woman looked at the divine king and the vice leader of the heavenly demon religion, Huaiyan. At this moment, Huaiyan and the divine king's battle had reached an extremely crucial moment. Although they had discovered the arrival of the two women, they could not afford to be distracted at all. The battle between them looked calm on the surface, but in reality, it was extremely dangerous. "You should be the people behind this battle, right? It's time for this chessboard to end," said the middle-aged woman. Her voice seemed to possess a mysterious power. It turned into a ripple that enveloped the chessboard between the two of them. Boom! Suddenly, the chessboard between Huaiyan and the divine king directly exploded without any prior signs. Immediately, devastating energy ripped through space, directly expanding in all directions. The ripples of energy were so powerful that even overgods felt despair. Even the divine king's face changed drastically. This was because this was a terrifying power that two primordial realm experts had only erupted with after charging up for a very long time. "Disperse!" Suddenly, the middle-aged woman called out calmly. Her voice seemed to turn into a law of the world, directly dispersing the devastating ripples of energy. The divine king and vice leader, Huaiyan, both retreated in horrible shape. The middle-aged woman had forcefully stopped their battle. The divine king stood on the walls of the fortress as he stared at the two women sternly. The strength of the women who had interfered surprised him. "Greetings from the vice leader of the branch of the heavenly demon religion on the Cloud Plain. May I ask who the two seniors are?" Huaiyan clasped his fist at the two middle-aged women and asked calmly. Chapter 1952. Child, you can't interfere with the battle of the heavenly demon religion. With your current strength, you won't be able to change the outcome even if you stay here. You might have barely managed to control the situation right now, but with the strength of the heavenly demon religion, it won't take them much effort to break through this situation. "It's best if you come with us," a middle-aged woman said to Shangguan Mu. "Thank you for your concern, seniors, but I don't want to leave right now. My husband has been captured by the commander of the 7th Army of the Heavenly Demon Religion, and we don't know if he's still alive." "If I can't find my husband, I won't leave here," Shangguan Mu said firmly. "Silly child, you've obtained the third ancestor's treasure. Once you join our Taoist sect of divine sound, your status will definitely be extraordinary. Regular disciples won't be able to compare to you. If you're a promising talent, our Taoist sect of Divine Sound will definitely spend a lot of resources to nurture you, giving you a chance to soar. However, your husband can't even deal with a mere commander of the heavenly demon religion. How can someone as insignificant as him be worthy of you, a disciple of the Taoist sect of Divine Sound? Child, forget about your husband. You will definitely become a dragon among men. In the future, your achievements will be so high that your husband can only look up to you and not reach you. The two of you are simply not suitable for each other, the middle-aged woman said with a heavy heart. With their cultivation at the primordial realm, there was no need for them to speak so politely to an over-god. However, the third ancestor's status in the Taoist sect of Divine Sound was so great that she was an existence that could not be surpassed. At the same time, she was an expert that the two of them admired greatly. As a result, when Shangguan Mu obtained the third ancestor's treasure, their attitudes toward Shangguan Mu are changed with the zither of the demonic cry. Our Taoist sect of Divine Sound is located in the central region of the Skyfire Plain. In the future, if the people in your clan want to visit you, they can come to the Skyfire Plain to find you. Child, it's time for us to set off. Once you arrive at the Taoist sect of Divine Sound and witness the supreme prodigies raised by the large sects on the Skyfire Plain, you'll discover that the husband you're constantly thinking about is actually nothing. With that, the two middle-aged women did not even wait for Shangguan Mu's reply. They directly waved their hands and left with Shangguan Mu. Sister Mu? Siyu cried out in alarm. His eyes were filled with anger as he immediately chased after Yi Qingyu. However, it was impossible for him to catch up to two primordial realm experts with his strength. In the blink of an eye, he lost track of the two primordial realm experts. On the walls of the fortress, Houston, Ruijin, and the others all had very ugly expressions. Shangguan Mu had been taken away right before their eyes, yet they could do nothing about it. As a result, they felt extremely frustrated and helpless. First, Jianqin had been taken away by the commander of the 7th Army, Yaxilian, and his fate was unknown. Now, Shangguan Mu had been taken away as well. This caused the people of the Tianyuan family to feel slightly gloomy. Shangguan Mu's departure naturally had an extremely great impact on the battlefield. Without her zither music, the soldiers of the heavenly demon religion immediately fought with greater courage. They were able to unleash their full battle prowess. On the other hand, the allied army of the divine kingdom of Pingtian was no longer able to maintain their previous equilibrium against the ferocious army of the heavenly demon religion. They immediately lost the upper hand. Even though they possessed an absolute advantage in numbers, their strength was on a completely different level. Kill! Ruijin bellowed out as he charged into the battlefield with a heavy heart. Afterwards, Houston and the others silently charged towards the soldiers of the heavenly demon religion. The divine king stood on the walls of the fortress as he faced off against the vice leader of the heavenly demon religion, Huayan. Neither of them could take action. Once they did, it would directly lead to a battle between primordial realm experts. Jianqin had just sent off the princes of the other empires and the prodigies of the various sects and empires in the imperial palace of the Xiandao Empire on the northern region of the Cloud Plain. He returned to his temporary residence alone. A sliver of exhaustion appeared on his face. In the past few days, his battle against the divine king of the Qianyun Gateway, where he defeated the divine king as an overgod, had already spread across the northern region. It had attracted the attention of many large organizations in the northern region. As a result, people from various places constantly visited him. They were either the princes and young masters of empires or the disciples of various large sects and clans. With so many prodigies gathered together, there would naturally be battles. At the same time, they all doubted whether Jianqin was really as powerful as the rumors said. As a result, Jianqin faced the challenges of many prodigies in the past few days. In the beginning, he would turn them down, but the more he turned them down, the more they wanted to challenge him. In the end, there would only be more and more people who wanted to challenge him. In the end, Jianqin could only spar with these prodigies and display some of his strength. However, through this, Jianqin managed to befriend many prodigies of large sects and princes of empires. He learnt about many strange matters of the northern region from them. At this moment, a young man who seemed to be around Jianqin's age rushed in from outside in a hurry. He said, "Brother Jianqin, Princess Tai, and the fifth prince of the Shi dynasty have come to visit. They specially want to see you." The young man directly arrived before Jianqin. He was both excited and emotional. He said excitedly, "Brother Jianqin, this is Princess Tai and the fifth prince. Do you know just how great their statuses in the Shi dynasty are? Please tell me, Brother Yanshan." As soon as he heard the Shi dynasty, Jianqin's eyes lit up. The young man before him was called Yanshan. He was a prince of the Xiandao dynasty. In the past few days, it was not just Prince Yanshan. Basically, all the princes of the Xiandao dynasty had tried to befriend Jianqin, trying their best to befriend Jianqin. As a result, Jianqin basically knew all the princes of the Xiandao dynasty. Prince Yanshan cleared his throat and began to introduce. This Princess Tai was personally conferred by His Majesty Emperor Shi. It's said that she's related to the Empress by blood. Not only is she the Empress Junior, but she's also the person the Empress dotes on the most. It's said that Princess Tai is the person closest to the Empress in the Shi dynasty aside from His Majesty Emperor Shi. In the Shi Empire, the imperial family is just too large. The children of the emperor are born as princes and princesses, while the descendants of the siblings who are related to the emperor by blood are also princes and princesses. As a result, there are quite a few princes and princesses in an eternal empire, Jianqin explained. But in reality, many of the princes and princesses only possess a single identity. They are extremely distant from the current emperor. As a matter of fact, some of the princes and princesses will never be able to speak to the emperor in their entire lives. However, Princess Tai is someone who can visit the empress at any time, and she has been personally conferred the title by Emperor Shi. That's how great her status is. No one in the Shi dynasty can compare to her. As for the fifth prince, he's also the person Emperor Shi admires the most. His father was one of the brothers that Emperor Shi had the best relationship with Emperor Shi when he was still the crown prince. As everyone knows, Emperor Shi has no descendants. Even though the fifth prince is not a descendant of Emperor Shi, many people believe that Emperor Shi is nurturing the fifth prince as his future successor, given how much Emperor Shi admires him. Chapter 1953. Brother Yanshan, let's go. Let's go meet Princess Tai and the fifth prince as soon as possible. Jianqin's eyes became brighter and brighter after listening to the prince's introduction to the princess and the fifth prince. In the end, he seemed even more anxious than the prince as he hurried off. He was extremely worried about his old friends in the southern region, but he was trapped in the northern region now, unable to leave at all. Now that Princess Tai and the fifth prince, who possessed great status in the Shi dynasty, had come to visit, Jianqin saw a sliver of hope in leaving the northern region. Under the prince's lead, Jianqin passed through resplendent halls, one after another. In the end, he arrived at a majestic hall in the center of the imperial palace. As soon as he entered the hall, Jianqin saw a man and a woman. They were young people who seemed to be in their 20s. They currently sat in the hall and conversed with the emperor of the Xiandao at ease. The woman possessed a beauty that could outshine the moon and put flowers to shame. She radiated with a noble bearing from head to toe. She was otherworldly, such that no one dared to profane her. On the other hand, the young man was upright and plain-spoken instead. His eyes were brimming with spirit, and his words and actions naturally revealed a dignified aura. Moreover, he even carried a wisp of decisiveness that couldn't be questioned, causing him to possess the bearing of an emperor. Moreover, the aura of an emperor vaguely appeared from him. An intent of a true dragon revolved around him. No wonder, Emperor, she appreciates the fifth prince so much. If the fifth prince becomes emperor in the future, he'll definitely be a wise and heroic ruler. Jianqin studied the man and woman in the hall. Without any introductions, he knew that they were Princess Tai and the fifth prince from the Shi dynasty. The fifth prince, in particular, left an extremely deep impression on Jianqin from the first moment they met. Over the years, Jianqin had seen quite a few princes and crown princes, but very few of them gave off an aura like the fifth prince. This caused him to have a whole new level of respect for the fifth prince. The emperor stood up and nodded at Jianqin with a smile before introducing him to Princess Tai and the fifth prince. Fifth prince, princess, this is Jianqin from the southern region. The dignified Princess Tai and the imposing fifth prince immediately stood up when they heard that. They clasped their hands at Jianqin and exchanged pleasantries. Haha, you youngsters can continue chatting. This emperor is going to take care of some matters. The Xiandao divine emperor said to both parties very politely, then left with Prince Yanshan. In the blink of an eye, only Jianqin, the fifth prince, and Princess Tai, and remained in the grand hall. Jianqin, there's no need for you to call me the fifth prince. That'll make you seem like an outsider. My original name is Shi Hao, so you can just call me Shi Hao, said the fifth prince with a smile. Afterwards, he looked at Princess Tai and beside him and said, as for Princess Tai and beside me, she's called Shangyin Shuixian. Apart from being the princess of our Shi dynasty, she's also the daughter of the Shangyin clan. Greetings, Shangyin Shuixian. Jianqin can just call me Shuixian. Princess Tai, and smiled faintly as she nodded at Jianqin. Jianqin had come into contact with many princes of various empires and prodigies of various sects in the past few days, so he had a rough understanding of the distribution of organizations on the cloud plane. Naturally, Jianqin knew about the Shangyin clan. Although the Shangyin clan was not within the Shi dynasty, it was still a famed clan in the northern region. Many ancient empires and organizations had to show respect to the Shangyin clan. This was because the current empress of the Shi dynasty came from the Shangyin clan. Afterwards, Jianqin spoke freely with the fifth prince. Clearly, the fifth prince wanted to rope in Jianqin, so he completely abandoned his status as a prince of the Shi dynasty when he spoke with Jianqin. He only treated himself as an ordinary friend. However, the fifth prince was extremely patient. Although he wanted to rope in Jianqin, he did not mention anything about roping him in. During this time, Princess Tai would chime in from time to time, humbly asking Jianqin for guidance on cultivation. Both her words and her expression revealed her admiration for Jianqin. Shi Hao, Miss Shuixian, to be honest, I have an extremely important matter that requires me to return to the southern region as soon as possible. However, the entire northern region has been sealed off by Emperor Shi. May I ask if you have any methods for me to return to the southern region as soon as possible? After several hours of conversation, Jianqin finally mentioned his main objective. The fifth prince and Princess Tai, and both frowned when they heard that. After a moment of silence, the fifth prince said, Jianqin, this matter is rather difficult to deal with. If it were any other time, I would have been able to open the interregional teleportation formation of my Shi dynasty for brother Jianqin. Even if the teleportation formation of the Shi dynasty is unusable, I believe that with my prestige, I should be able to borrow the teleportation formations of the ancient empires and organizations in the northern region. However, Uncle Ziyun has personally ordered for all the teleportation formations of the northern region to be sealed off. With Uncle Ziyun's current prestige, basically no one dares to disobey him in the boundless northern region. The ancient empires would never be bold enough to open up teleportation formations, and even the teleportation formation of our Shi dynasty has been closed as well. Only the old Holy Emperor or Uncle Ziyun's permission can be used. Reaching there, the fifth prince smiled self-deprecatingly. Jianqin, I might be one of the princes of the Shi dynasty right now, but the old holy emperor of the Shi dynasty are not people that we princes can meet whenever we want. As for Uncle Ziyun, he's currently in a stalemate with the ancestor of the Skyren sect. With Uncle Ziyun's personality right now, it's extremely likely that he'll start fighting with the Skyren sect. If you go and find him right now, you'll only make Uncle unhappy. Our Shangyun clan's teleportation formation has been closed as well. Jianqin, I'm afraid we won't be able to help you with this, said Princess Taiyan as well. Jianqin became disappointed when he heard that. He said, Emperor Shi is a little too vicious. He really doesn't spare anyone who tried to kill him in the past. Even the imperial protector of the Shi dynasty was captured by Emperor Shi a while ago. Now he's going to deal with the Skyren sect of the Shi dynasty. If this continues, it'll be very bad for the Shi dynasty. Moreover, Emperor Shi has trapped many people here for revenge, unable to leave. Jianqin felt very helpless inside. Yeah, ever since Uncle ascended to the throne, his personality has changed drastically. He wasn't like this in the past. It's a pity that no one in the Empire can stop Uncle now. Even the old Holy Emperor can't do anything to Uncle. The fifth prince said helplessly as well. His face was filled with worry. His uncle had already killed off all the primordial realm experts in the Shi imperial family, causing the entire empire to be in a state of panic. They were unable to find peace at all. Princess Tai and sighed gently when she heard their words. She became rather dejected, and she said gloomily, Actually, you can't blame Uncle. Everything has a cause and effect. If it weren't for the fact that those people pursued Aunt and her parents endlessly, causing Aunt to lose her daughter, my uncle would not have ended up like this. What? Lose her daughter? The fifth prince was stunned. Even Jianqin was surprised. He stared at Princess Taiyan blankly. At this moment, Princess Tai and suddenly returned to her senses. She realized that she had let it slip, so she immediately covered her mouth in surprise. Chapter 1954. Shuixian, what did you just say? My uncle lost his daughter when he was hunted down back then? Why have I never heard of my uncle having a daughter? The fifth prince stared at Princess Tai and in confusion. Everyone knew that Emperor Shi had no descendants. Now that Princess Tai and had suddenly mentioned a daughter, the fifth prince became rather confused. Don't ask any more, okay? If Annie finds out that I leaked the news, Annie will never forgive me. The fifth princess had become rather flustered. Some panic appeared on her face. She knew extremely well just how great of a mistake she had made by leaking the news by accident. The fifth prince and Jianqin both realized the severity of the matter when they saw how panicked and fearful Princess Taiyan was, so they did not ask too much. However, with their sharp minds, they were able to come up with many conclusions from this small piece of news. Jianqin, Shihao, can you not tell anyone about this? This matter is still highly confidential in the Empire. There aren't a lot of people who know about it. Princess Tai and was no longer as composed as before. Her face was filled with panic as she begged Jianqin and Shihao. Don't worry, Shuixian. We definitely won't tell anyone about this. Jianqin, am I right? The fifth prince swore. Jianqin nodded as well, promising that he would not leak the secret. Princess Tai and was no longer in the mood to stay in the Xiandao dynasty after something like this happened. She bid farewell to Jianqin in a hurry and left uneasily. Naturally, the fifth prince did not stay behind after Princess Taiyan left. After giving Jianqin a communication jade talisman, he left the Xiandao dynasty as well. The fifth prince was extremely smart. He knew that the chances of roping in a supreme prodigy like Jianqin were extremely slim. As a result, he never mentioned roping him in before Jianqin. He only tried to foster their friendship. If they became friends, everything would be much simpler. Jianqin sent the fifth prince and Princess Tai and out of the imperial capital before returning to his residence. He thought about the matter of Emperor Shi's daughter. I never thought that Emperor Shi would kill so many primordial realm experts just to avenge his daughter. Though, When will this grievance end so that I can return to the southern region sooner? Genshin thought. He was very worried as he sat in his residence. However, at this moment, Genshin's body suddenly shuddered. A thought that he found rather unbelievable suddenly appeared in his head. He immediately thought about it and began to analyze it quickly. Even now, no one in the Shi dynasty knows about Emperor Shi and his wife having a child. Even the imperial protector of the Shi dynasty doesn't know about it. As a result, I can be certain that the empress' pregnancy did not happen in the Shi dynasty. Otherwise, it would have been impossible to keep it a secret. It would have spread like wildfire a long time ago. As a result, the empress' pregnancy probably happened when Emperor Shi was being hunted down. That was over 2,000 years ago. Also, over 2,000 years ago, the patriarch of the Mo clan picked up a baby girl from outside. She had nothing else on her apart from a jade pendant with the word Shiyu engraved on it. I've seen the jade pendant as well. It's extremely tough and extraordinary. Even I was unable to damage it back then. As a result, the person who left behind the words on the jade pendant must have possessed an extremely great cultivation. The time matches, the surname matches, and the gender matches. Don't tell me Shiyu is... Genshin immediately became extremely shocked when he thought up to there. He found it to be very unbelievable. After a moment of hesitation, Genshin suddenly looked in the direction that Princess Tai-En and the fifth prince had left in and chased after them as quickly as he could. Outside the imperial capital, a luxurious carriage was propelled by 9 exotic beasts as it rapidly flew through the air. Several dozen powerful guards followed the carriage closely on both sides. To no surprise, the leader was a divine king. At this moment, Princess Tai and of the Shi dynasty and the fifth prince sat in the carriage. Shuexian, can you tell me in detail what's going on? When did uncle have a daughter? Why haven't I heard about it before? The fifth prince asked curiously. This luxurious carriage was also a magic treasure with extremely strong defensive power. It was covered with array formations, and the conversation inside could not be transmitted to the outside at all. I'll have to start from when my uncle and aunt were being hunted down. Back then, my aunt and uncle unexpectedly discovered that they were pregnant when they were hunted down by their enemies. Only when my aunt gave birth to the child did they make up their mind to abandon her, as they were unable to protect their newborn daughter. They hoped that their daughter could survive. Princess Tai-En said slowly, "So that's how it is. I never thought that I would actually have a younger sister. What happened after that? What happened to my sister? Is there any news?" The fifth prince was greatly surprised before asking in concern. Princess Tai-En shook her head. Her face was gloomy. She said, "Back then, my aunt and uncle were hunted down extremely miserably. They fled across the entire cloud plain and were heavily injured many times. Their lives were hanging by a thread. The situation was extremely dangerous. Even they had no idea where their daughter was, so they don't even know if she's still alive. It's just that after my uncle ascended to the throne, he offended far too many people in order to take revenge. As a result, he never dared to announce that he had a daughter, afraid that their enemies would find their daughter first. As a result, he could only send trusted subordinates to search the entire cloud plain secretly. However, after all these years, there's still no news at all. Princess Tai-En looked at Shi Hao when she reached there. She said, "Shi Hao, you understand the severity of this matter now, right? You can't tell anyone about this." Shi Hao nodded sternly. He said, "Shuexian, I know what I'm doing. I never thought that the reason why my uncle's personality changed so drastically and he became so vicious and heartless was because of this. Now, I don't think my uncle has gone overboard at all." At this moment, a guard's voice rang out from outside. "Fifth Prince, Princess Tai-En, Genshin has caught up. He says that he wants to see Princess Tai-En." Genshin has caught up? What does he want to do? The fifth prince and Princess Tai and were both puzzled. Very soon, the carriage came to a stop. Princess Tai and the fifth prince emerged from the carriage. They hovered in the air as they watched Jianqin chase after them with lightning speed. Jianqin clasped his fist at the fifth prince before saying to Princess Taiyin, "Princess Taiyin, may I have a word with you?" Princess Tai and nodded and immediately flew into the distance with Jianqin. The fifth prince stood with his hands behind his back. He stood before the carriage and gazed at them in the distance. He was very puzzled and murmured to himself, "Strange. Why has Jianqin suddenly come looking for Shui Xian?" In the distance, Jianqin cast down a soundproof barrier before taking out an embroidered box from his space ring. He said sternly, "Princess Taiyin, I have a request. Please personally hand this embroidered box to the Empress or Emperor Shi." Princess Tai and accepted the embroidered box out of curiosity. She looked at it from left to right and asked in confusion, "Jianqin, what is this?" "Just treat it as a small gift to the Empress and Emperor Shi. Perhaps they'll like it. However, the Empress and the Shi Emperor must see what's inside with their own eyes." Jianqin was extremely stern, as if he was telling them something extremely important. "Yes, I will personally hand it to Aunt and Uncle," said Princess Tai, and before returning to the carriage and leaving with the fifth prince. Jianqin did not leave. He stood in the air as he stared at the carriage that had already vanished. He thought, although I made the jade pendant in a hurry and the material used to make it was nothing special, both its appearance and the words on it are the same as the one I saw from Xiu. If she really is the daughter Emperor Shi and his wife lost, they'll naturally recognize the jade pendant after seeing it. But if she's not, it's not a loss to me. I won't have offended Emperor Shi and the Empress because of this. Chapter 1955. In the next few days, fewer people came to visit Jianqin, allowing Jianqin to enjoy a few days of peace. However, during this time, the divine king of the Xiandao dynasty did visit Jianqin once. He solemnly proposed marriage to Jianqin, wanting to betroth his two daughters, Xing, and Lan, to Jianqin. Naturally, Jianqin would not agree to this. He turned it down without any hesitation at all. Even though he had learnt from Fairy Haoyue that Xing, and Lan possessed special constitutions, he did not have any thoughts about it. Apart from that, as one of the peak sects in the Xiandao dynasty, the Qianyun Gateway also sent a divine king to the imperial palace of the Xiandao dynasty. He had not come to seek justice for Jianqin injuring Zhou Chu and the divine king Feiha. Instead, he had brought a heavy gift and an extremely sincere apology, hoping to bury the hatchet. Jianqin knew that it was all because of Fairy Haoyue's deterrence, which was why the Qianyun Gateway was willing to swallow their anger. He did not have any irreconcilable grievances with Qianyun Gateway, nor did he want to become enemies with Qianyun Gateway. As a result, Jianqin gladly agreed to Qianyun Gateway's offer of reconciliation. Apart from this matter, two other major events that shook up the entire northern region had also happened. First, the first, second, and third armies of the heavenly demon religion had attacked the northern region, unleashing endless slaughter on the borders of the northern region. This matter had directly angered the Empress of the Shi dynasty. The Empress of the Shi dynasty had personally taken action, killing her way over alone and heavily injuring a vice leader of the heavenly demon religion. Now, the heavenly demon religion's attack on the northern region had been temporarily stopped. The second matter was even more shocking. After several days of stalemate with Emperor Shi, the ancestor of the Skyren sect, the Shi dynasty's Skyren sect, finally came to a compromise. He handed over the two great elders of the Skyren sect who had taken part in hunting down Emperor Shi. The Skyren sect's compromise caused a huge commotion among the various organizations in the northern region, shocking them all. The Skyren sect was a peak sect that also possessed a chaotic prime. Normally, even the imperial family of the Shi dynasty treated them politely. However, the ancestor of the Skyren sect, despite how forceful Emperor Shi was as a chaotic prime, he actually chose to yield, handing over the two great infinite elders. Even with the entire Skyren sect in perspective, there were only 3 infinite prime great elders. No one dares to defy Emperor Shi's might. After this matter, Emperor Shi's might became even greater. People who praised Emperor Shi could be heard everywhere in the northern region. The matters between Emperor Shi and the Skyren sect have finally been resolved. I hope the seal of the northern region is lifted soon. Jianqin sat in the imperial palace of the Xiandao dynasty as he looked at the tremendous formation in the air. He was secretly eager. I've already refined all the poison in the monster cores and demon cores. At this moment, Fairy Haoyue's voice rang out in Jianqin's head. The Fairy Haoyue slowly made her way over in a white dress. It's best if you don't leak these monster cores and demon cores in the southern region. They're connected to a prince of the Blood Sun Empire. The Blood Sun Empire status in the southern region is similar to the Shi dynasty in the northern region. You know what's at stake here. Jianqin accepted the demon cores and monster cores from Fairy Haoyue. They were fist-sized, and after refining the poison, they became crystalline. He could even vaguely see the pure and powerful energy flowing slowly within them. It was extremely active. Fairy Haoyue raised her head to the sky and stared at the screen of light that sealed off the entire northern region. She said, "Since the matters between Emperor Shi and the Skyren sect have been resolved, the seal won't last much longer. Tomorrow, the people from the Xiandao dynasty will move against another great sect that they have a feud with. Once I complete the transaction with the Xiandao dynasty, I should leave the Cloud Plain and return to the Moon God Hall." As soon as the Moon God Hall was mentioned, Fairy Haoyue struggled to remain calm. Her emotions fluctuated slightly. It's been so many years. I wonder how the Moon God Hall is doing. Has Father seen through Nan Potion's scheme? It's a pity that the Cloud Plain is just too far away from the Moon God Hall. It's impossible to find any information about the Moon God Hall here. A sliver of worry appeared on Fairy Haoyue's face. Fairy Haoyue, Nan Patian should be very powerful. If things really develop unfavorably, you should just return like this. Jianqin hesitated. Although he did not know what had happened to the Moon God Hall, it was not difficult for him to guess a few things from Fairy Haoyue's words. In the past, Nan Patian was close to peak chaotic prime, but he was still much weaker than my father. If Nan Patian comes to the Cloud Plain, with his strength, there should be no one on the Cloud Plain who is his opponent unless a Grand Prime appears. Back then, it was because I discovered Nan Potion's scheme to take the Moon God Hall that I fell to his vicious hands. In the end, my body was destroyed, and my soul accidentally fled to the lower worlds, Fairy Haoyue said in a heavy voice as killing intent flickered in her eyes. Jianqin sank into his thoughts when he heard that. Only after quite a while did he say seriously, "Fairy Haoyue, I suggest that you return to the Moon God Hall a little later and work hard to increase your strength. If Nan Patian really does plan to take over the Moon God Hall, you won't be of much help even if you go with Nan Patian." Fairy Haoyue sighed gloomily. "How can I not understand what you're saying? But I can't wait any longer. It's been so many years. No matter what the current situation of the Moon God Hall is, I have to go back and take a look. Otherwise, I won't be able to rest easy." Fairy Haoyue's voice was filled with determination. Jianqin was helpless when he saw how he could not persuade Fairy Haoyue. After a while of thought, he suddenly asked, "Where is the Moon God Hall?" Fairy Haoyue glanced at Jianqin slightly when she heard that. She said, "It's on the Ice Pole Plain. It's where one of the 7 grand exalts of the Saints' world, the Ice Goddess, used to reside. It's also one of the 7 sacred plains of the Saints' world." Fairy Haoyue paused before continuing. "The Cloud Plain is extremely distant from the Ice Pole Plain. Just using the teleportation formation between planes costs quite a lot of 5-colored divine crystals. It's enough to cripple an ancient empire. Even Sister Tian Shuang can't afford to pay such a price. The Xiandao dynasty is only willing to pay enough 5-colored divine crystals because they made a deal with me to deal with a great enemy that they struggled to deal with." Aye. The next morning, Fairy Haoyue left silently with Tian Shuang and 2 other infinite primes from the Xiandao dynasty. Soon after they left, the formation that sealed up the entire northern region vanished as well. The Shi Emperor's seal on the northern region had finally been removed on this day. The moment the seal was removed, Jianqin suddenly stood up from a luxurious hall in the imperial palace. He arrived outside in a flash and looked at the sky. He had waited for this day for far too long. Fantastic. We can finally leave the northern region. Jianqin stared at the sky and cried out excitedly. Without any hesitation, he immediately went to find the emperor. He wanted to leave through the Xiandao dynasty's teleportation formation. He had been worried for a long time already. Now that the seal was removed, he could not even wait to bid farewell to Fairy Haoyue. He wanted to return to the southern region as soon as possible. I wonder if Princess Tai and has given the box to the Empress and Emperor Shi. However, I can't be certain whether Shiyu is Emperor Shi's lost daughter or not. It's just a guess. However, I clearly can't stay here and wait for the result of an illusory guess. If she isn't, I'll just be wasting time if I keep waiting. I'll be putting the Tianyuan family in danger. Chapter 1956. With Jianqin's status in the Xiandao dynasty, borrowing a teleportation formation was nothing difficult. Although he had turned down the emperor's proposal, the emperor treated Jianqin with the same fervor. He personally escorted Jianqin to the teleportation formation in the imperial palace. So Jianqin did not even have to pay the exorbitant fee to use the formation. After giving the location, the teleportation formation immediately activated. With a powerful force, Jianqin directly vanished from the formation. In the imperial capital of the Heavenly Moon Empire, Sun Moon City, in the southern region of the Cloud Plain, the bustling imperial capital was bustling with activity. Immaculately dressed officials and nobles, or simply dressed cultivators, moved through the bustling streets. Long lines lined the sides of the streets, and a large number of people filled the endless shops. As an ancient empire on the same level as the Xiandao dynasty, the imperial capital of the Heavenly Moon Empire was obviously on par with the imperial capital of the Xiandao dynasty. Many people with some status in the southern region had gathered there. In the center of Sun Moon City, there was a castle-like building. There were groups of 2 or 3 people gathered in the castle. Not far away, there were 4 extremely mysterious teleportation formations carved on the ground. 2 of the teleportation formations were relatively smaller, only around 10 meters in diameter. The remaining 2 were much larger than the first 2, reaching 30 meters in diameter. Not only did they give off more powerful pulses of energy, but the inscriptions that formed the teleportation formations were even more complicated and profound. The people gathered in the ancient castle all paid a certain amount of divine crystals to an old man before stepping onto a teleportation formation that was only 10 meters in diameter. As for the second teleportation formation that was 10 meters in diameter, it would flash with white light from time to time. Every time the white light dispersed, a different number of people would appear on the formation. 2 teleportation formations, one in and one out. Compared to the 2 10-meter-wide teleportation formations, the other 2 30-meter-wide teleportation formations seemed much more deserted. They would not even be used once in several months. However, at this moment, powerful pulses of energy suddenly radiated from one of the 30-meter-wide teleportation formations. The pulses of energy were so powerful that they were several times more powerful than the 2 10-meter-wide teleportation formations. The teleportation formation has reacted. Someone has come from another region. The teleportation formation has not been used even once in several years. Every time it's used, it costs an astronomical amount of divine crystals. I wonder which great figure has come from another region. For a moment, everyone in the surroundings looked towards the teleportation formation as they discussed softly. Under everyone's gazes, a young man who seemed to be in his 20s appeared on the teleportation formation. He wore white robes, and his presence was concealed. He seemed just like an ordinary person. However, his resolute and handsome face carried a somewhat cold expression. His seemingly ordinary eyes also carried an oppressive feeling that caused many people to feel fear in their hearts. This person must be an expert. Many people around the teleportation formation secretly commented. Their gazes were filled with envy and reverence. To no surprise, the young man was Genshin. Genshin did not stay for long. He left the castle as soon as he emerged from the teleportation formation. He bought a map from a store in the imperial capital and left in a hurry after confirming his location. He did not waste any time at all. In order to find a path of retreat for the Tianyuan family, he had cast down a teleportation formation in the Heavenly Moon Empire. However, the teleportation formation was located extremely far away from the imperial capital. As a result, he needed to hurry to where he had cast down the teleportation formation in the Heavenly Moon Empire. Only then could he return to the divine kingdom of Pingtian in the shortest amount of time possible. The Tianyuan family in the Dong and province of the divine kingdom of Pingtian seemed rather gloomy recently. The entire clan was filled with an oppressive atmosphere. This was because the patriarch of the Tianyuan family, Genshin, had gone missing for many days. No one knew if he was still alive. Genshin was the entire Tianyuan family. Even though the Tianyuan family had other overgods, they were nowhere near as important as Genshin. As a result, Genshin's disappearance affected the entire clan greatly. I hope the patriarch can return safely. The Tianyuan family cannot go without Genshin. At this moment, Mo Ling and Ofu and the former patriarch of the Mo clan, Mo Xingfeng, gathered together. All of them were worried. The former patriarch of the Mo clan, Mo Xingfeng, had become a god after receiving a large amount of cultivation resources from the Tianyuan family. He had become an elder of the Tianyuan family. Right at this moment, the expressions of the three of them simultaneously froze. Their eyes widened as they stared ahead in shock. The white-robed Genshin slowly walked out of the forbidden grounds. Family head? Mo Ling and the other two exclaimed in disbelief. At this moment, the three of them had become a blur. Everyone knew that the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan had been taken away by the commander of the 7th Army of the Heavenly Demon Religion, Yaxilian. There was no news of him at all, and no one knew if he was still alive. Yet now, the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan, who was rumored to have been taken away by Yaxilian, had actually walked out of the forbidden grounds perfectly fine. Mo Ling and the others were rather confused by this. What's the situation on the front lines? Are Siyu and the others fine? Genshin asked rather nervously. He was afraid that something he did not wish to see had happened while he was gone. Elder Siyu and the others are fine. At the same time, Elder Siyu and Elder Houston have both become overgods, said Mo Ling. His face had become bright red from excessive excitement. Genshin, finally, let out a sigh of relief. He could not help but smile before immediately making his way to the front lines of the divine kingdom of Pingtian. The battle continued on the frontier of the divine kingdom of Pingtian. The sturdy fortress had completely collapsed, forcing the divine kingdom of Pingtian to use a large number of soldiers to create lines of defense to stop the army of the Heavenly Demon Religion. The divine kingdom of Pingtian had done everything they could for this battle. Not only did they order all the clans in the divine kingdom to send more people, but they had even mobilized most of the guards in the royal capital and the royal divine army. Aside from the divine kingdom of Pingtian, the other divine kingdoms in the surroundings had sent out a large number of troops as well. They used spatial treasures to transport the troops from various places. Only by gathering the strength of several countries could they contend against the 3 armies of the Heavenly Demon Religion. The divine king hovered in the air as he observed the battle in the surroundings. He was not optimistic at all. His brows remained furrowed the entire time. Vice Leader Huai stood with his hands behind his back before him. He hovered there leisurely as a faint smile appeared on his face. He seemed like victory was already in his grasp. He looked at the sky. With his unique cultivation method, he could clearly sense strands of invisible soul energy gathering in the sky. All of it was absorbed into the sea of blood in the headquarters of the heavenly demon religion. "I've already completed half of the Grand Elder's mission," thought Huayan. He also understood that the heavenly demon religion's attack this time was not actually an invasion. Instead, it was an endless slaughter to gather soul energy. Suddenly, Huayan's eyes narrowed. He stared behind the Divine King. With his eyesight as a primordial realm expert, he could clearly see a figure hurrying over with lightning speed on a sword. "It's Genshin. Why isn't he dead yet?" Huayan frowned. At the same time, the Divine King sensed Genshin rushing over from behind. He was slightly surprised before he seemed to think of something, and he came to a realization. "Genshin greets your Majesty." Genshin arrived before the Divine King very soon and clasped his hands towards him. "Good, good. As long as you're fine." The Divine King nodded with a smile. Genshin's return had dispersed some of his gloominess. "Genshin, where's the commander of the 7th Army, Yaxilian?" Huayan asked sternly. Looking at the unscathed Genshin, he suddenly felt an ill omen. Genshin smiled mysteriously when he heard Yaxilian's name. He said, "Your Majesty, I just happened to have a small gift for you." With that, Genshin immediately pulled out the commander of the 7th Army, Yaxilian, who was locked up in the Bright Moon Divine Hall. Yaxilian's cultivation was still sealed, so she was unable to unleash her great strength. She was held in Genshin's hand like a chick. "Yaxilian!" Vice Sect Leader Huai's expression changed greatly as he cried out in alarm. His face was still filled with deep disbelief. This was because the outcome was completely different from what he had imagined. It could be said that the outcome had been completely reversed. Afterwards, Huayan moved and shot towards Yaxilian as quickly as he could. He wanted to save Yaxilian from Genshin. Primordial realm experts were so fast that Genshin was unable to sense them at all. "Huayan, if you take another step forward, I'll obliterate her soul right now." The Divine King's voice rang out slowly. He had already appeared before Genshin silently and pressed his hand against Yaxilian's head. With his strength as a primordial realm expert, he only needed to exert a little force, and he could obliterate Yaxilian instantly. Even Huayan would not be able to save her in time. The Divine King's words made Huayan come to a halt. His face was sunken as he glanced at Yaxilian sternly. The light in his eyes flickered with uncertainty. In the end, Huayan no longer dared to advance, but he did not retreat either. He glared at Genshin and said sternly, "What a Genshin! I never thought you would have some ability. Even Yaxilian has ended up in your hands." Chapter 1957. Primordial Realm. Huayan snorted coldly. His eyes were extremely cold as he growled, "We need to properly investigate this matter and see just which primordial realm expert is bold enough to oppose our heavenly demon religion like this. If it were a battle between primordial realm experts, it wouldn't be a big deal even if they lost. However, as a primordial realm expert, they actually laid their hands on a Divine King. Our heavenly demon religion will never let this matter go. We will definitely pursue this matter to the end." Huayan stared at the Divine King sternly when he reached there. He said, "Pingtian, let go of Yaxilian." The Divine King smiled. "Huayan, it looks like Yaxilian holds quite a high position in your heart from how anxious you are." With that, the Divine King could not help but tighten his grip on Yaxilian's head. Primordial realm laws vaguely condensed as he threatened Huayan. "It's not impossible for me to let go of Yaxilian, but your heavenly demon religion has to withdraw immediately." "Withdraw? That's impossible," Huayan said coldly. His eyes were extremely cold. "In particular, There was heavy killing intent when he looked at Jianchen. If it were not for the fact that the primordial realm expert behind Jianchen had captured Yaxilian today, Huayan would never have been forced into such a passive situation. All of this was caused by Jianchen. I can't let go of Jianchen. Let's not even talk about how great of a problem he'll become once he matures. Just the matter of Yaxilian is unforgivable. Huayan was filled with killing intent. At that moment, he was even tempted to ignore the Divine King and directly charge over to kill Jianchen. However, Yaxilian was in the Divine King's hands, so he did not dare to act recklessly. Since your heavenly demon religion refuses to withdraw, I can only disregard my status and personally kill the commander of the 7th Army of the heavenly demon religion. That way, I can weaken your heavenly demon religion's strength. The Divine King's voice became cold. He was filled with determined killing intent. He was a decisive person. Since they could not come to an agreement, he would not spare Yaxilian's life. Stop! Just when the Divine King was about to kill Yaxilian, Huayan suddenly called out. The Divine King was emotionless. The powerful power of primordial realm laws had already gathered around his finger on Yaxilian's head. Huayan, have you made up your mind? The Divine King glared at Huayan and Pingtian, I'll tell you the truth. You can't kill Yaxilian. If you really do, your divine kingdom of Pingtian will be destroyed. This is because Yaxilian is the direct disciple of one of the 8 elders, the Fox Saint Elder. At the same time, she's the only disciple of the Fox Saint Elder. You should be able to guess just how great her status in the Fox Saint Elder's heart is. Huayan said sternly, The Fox Saint Elder? The Divine King frowned. His understanding of the Empyrean demon cult was only limited to the branch on the cloud plane. However, the Fox Saint Elder had clearly exceeded the level of the branch on the cloud plane. I never thought she would actually be the direct disciple of the Fox Saint Elder. Pingtian, you really can't kill Yaxilian, because once the Fox Saint Elder arrives, besides the eternal Blood Sun dynasty, no one in our ancient dynasties in the southern region is a match for him. At this moment, an old voice suddenly rang out in the Divine King's head. The Divine King knew who the owner of the voice was. He was a primordial realm ancestor of the imperial family of the Heavenly Moon Empire. He watched over the imperial family and used the powerful senses of a primordial realm expert to communicate with him from extremely far away. The Divine King thought quickly. He said to Huayan, So what if she's the direct disciple of the Fox Saint Elder? Casualties are unavoidable in a battle. If the Fox Saint Elder really is bold enough to come, do you think the Blood Sun Empire will just turn a blind eye to it? It's impossible for me to yield to her for no reason. Huayan's face became uneasy. Only after a very long moment of silence did he say, Pingtian, it's impossible for us to retreat. However, I can give you 7 days to recover as a condition for Yaxilian. Huayan was helpless after being forced into such a situation. Yaxilian's identity was just too special. If anything happened to her here, he would not be able to bear the consequences. 7 days is too short. A month, the Divine King said coldly. 10 days. Huayan said coldly. In the end, the 2 sides agreed to a ceasefire of half a month. Although half a month was very short, it was a great buffer for the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian. It allowed them to make more preparations. Whether it was the battle between the overgods or the battle between the Divine Kings, they all stopped at that moment. The overgods and Divine Kings on both sides all returned to their respective camps. However, their numbers had decreased drastically compared to before the battle had begun. Over a third of the overgods had died and several Divine Kings had died as well. However, when they saw Jianchen standing beside the Divine King, many of them were filled with deep surprise. Brother, this is fantastic. I knew you'd be fine. So you rushed over to Jianchen as soon as possible. Undisguised joy and joy filled her face. At this moment, Siyu was covered in blood. Many wounds had appeared on her body. making her look vicious and terrifying. Behind her, Houston, Ruijin, Honglien, Blackfish, and so on all let out a sigh of relief when they saw Jianqin return safely. They all smiled from the bottom of their hearts. They were all injured to varying degrees. In particular, Blackfish was the most heavily injured. Let's go. Let's go back first. Jianqin did not exchange too many pleasantries. He vanished from the fortress with them as soon as possible. There was a camp within the fortress. Many divine halls stood at the center of the camp. Every single divine hall represented a large organization. The divine king of the divine kingdom of Pingtian had set up a divine hall there as a place for everyone to rest. Jianqin directly entered the divine hall that belonged to the divine kingdom of Pingtian with Sacred Feather and the others. He directly arrived in a secret room and took out the best pills he had purchased from the imperial capital of the Xiandao Empire. These pills are all of extraordinary quality. Consume them quickly and heal your wounds, Jianqin said to everyone. Sacred Feather and the others did not stand on ceremony. They directly picked up the saint healing pills and swallowed them. They began to recover from their injuries and the overused origin energy. Brother, Sister Mu has been taken away, said Sacred Feather. As soon as he mentioned this, he became rather gloomy. What? Someone took Mu away? Jianqin was stunned. A shocking light shone in his eyes as a powerful presence radiated from him. What's going on? Who took Mu away? It's a sect called the Taoist sect of divine sound. They explained everything in a few simple sentences. The Skyfire plane, the Taoist sect of divine sound. Jianqin instead calmed down after learning about what had happened. He murmured softly before raising his head to look at the ceiling of the secret room. His gaze seemed to be able to see through all obstructions and into outer space. He saw the Skyfire plane that was extremely distant from the cloud plane, where he had never even heard of it before. Mu, or I will come and find you. That day won't be too far away. Jianqin secretly made up his mind. Chapter 1958. Afterwards, Jianqin took out a few high-quality saint artifacts and the 3 supreme quality saint artifacts for everyone to choose from. He had also purchased these saint artifacts from the imperial capital of the Xiandao dynasty. They could be used for both attack and defense. Amagami can be used for both attack and defense. Having Amagami is enough for me, said Houston. He only chose some healing pills. None of these things are suitable for me, said Siyu. In the end, only Ruijin, Honglien, and Blackfish chose a few high-quality saint artifacts to replace their original saint artifacts. With the increase in their strength, the sacred weapons that they originally had, apart from the bead that could block attacks from the primordial spirit, were almost useless. Jianqin, it's rumored that you were captured by the commander of the 7th Army, Yaxilian, but she's become your prisoner now. What's going on? Houston asked as he healed. Fairy Haoyue saved me. Fairy Haoyue has already recovered to the primordial realm. Jianqin gave a simple explanation of what had happened. Everyone gathered there became stunned when they heard that Fairy Haoyue had already become a primordial realm expert. They found it rather hard to believe. Back on the Tianyuan continent, Fairy Haoyue was only left with a soul. She was so fragile in their eyes, yet now she had become a primordial realm expert in such a short amount of time. All of them found this to be rather unrealistic. The primordial realm was a supreme realm of cultivation that they could only look up to. I've brought back quite a few things from my trip to the imperial capital of the Xiandao dynasty. These things are enough for our Tianyuan family's overall strength to rise to a whole new level. Once you've mostly recovered, come with me to the Tianyuan family. I want to use this half a month of ceasefire to reorganize the Tianyuan family so that we can fight on the front lines without any worries, Jianqin said. He thought about how an unknown group of people had attacked the Tianyuan family when they were collecting materials for teleportation formations. Before he found out who was behind this and completely eliminated this threat, the Tianyuan family would always be enveloped by an invisible sense of danger. As a result, Jianqin had always been very worried about the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan. He was afraid that something would happen to the clan while he was away. During this period of ceasefire, the divine kingdom of Pingtian was not peaceful. The divine king personally passed down a divine decree to deploy all the soldiers of the divine kingdom to the front lines. At the same time, he recruited a large number of soldiers in the divine kingdom. At the same time, the divine king communicated with the primordial realm experts of the heavenly moon empire through the senses of his soul in order to obtain even more reinforcements. This was because it was impossible for the divine kingdom of Pingtian to stop the armies of the heavenly demon religion with just their strength alone. At the same time, the divine kings of the surrounding divine kingdoms responded to the divine king's call. They mobilized even more soldiers and sent them to the divine kingdom of Pingtian. The fortress on the front lines was being rebuilt as well. Several divine kings worked personally, forging the long fortress until it was as tough as a defensive saint artifact. The Empyrean demon cult replenished their forces in an orderly manner as well. Although the 300,000 soldiers of the three armies had suffered casualties, the Empyrean demon cult definitely did not just consist of the 9 armies. Behind the 9 legions, there was a reserve army. Once the soldiers of the 9 legions were injured, they would immediately be replaced by reinforcements from the reserve army. However, for some reason, the 9 armies of the heavenly demon religion remained at 100,000 people. They never exceeded this number. A few days later, Rui Jin and the others had mostly recovered. Jianqin immediately took them back to the Dong and province. When they set off, many of the ancestors of the powerful clans in the Dong and province had come as well. They followed Jianqin to the fortress. However, apart from the people from the Tianyuan clan, there were only 2 ancestors from the powerful clans that had returned to the Dong and province this time. Jianqin looked at the 2 remaining ancestors of the powerful clans from the Dong and province and sighed inside. He silently controlled the flying vehicle to fly towards the Dong and province. The news of the sudden return of the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan, who was rumored to have been captured by the commander of the 7th Army of the Heavenly Demon Religion, spread through the entire Dong and province as soon as possible. When Jianqin and the others approached the Dong and province on the flying vehicle, the city gates were already filled with people. Many people gathered there to welcome them warmly. The patriarch of the Tianyuan clan is a supreme overgod who has the right to be ranked on the overgods plaque. Even with the entire saints world in perspective, he's renowned among overgods. I never thought I'd be so close to a supreme overgod. He's a legendary figure. It's said that supreme overgods can kill divine king experts. The commander of the 7th Army sure is unlucky. She's actually offended a supreme overgod, exactly. I heard that the commander of the 7th Army was captured alive by the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan. Even though the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan is still an overgod, capturing a divine king is already a piece of cake for him. Many people praised Jianqin amidst the warm cheers. Many people in the Dong and province could not help but show deep pride when the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan was mentioned. The flying vehicle directly carried everyone into the Tianyuan family. The elders had all been waiting for quite some time already. When they saw Jianqin and the others return safely, they were unable to hide their excitement and joy. Jianqin leapt off the vehicle. Just when he wanted to say something, a gleam of light suddenly flashed through his eyes. He stared at the residence that belonged to him sharply. "There's someone inside." Jianqin shivered inside. His sharp senses allowed him to sense that something was moving in his room, but he was unable to sense anyone with the senses of his soul. This person's strength is far greater than mine. I can't sense anything with the senses of my soul at all. Jianqin's heart sank slightly. He directly made his way to his residence in some confusion. "See you, Houston," and the others all sensed Jianshin's change. They looked at one another before following behind Jianshin. Jianshin directly pushed open the door and entered. He knew that before an expert who could not even sense anything with the senses of his soul, his every action was probably within their grasp. No matter what he did, he would not be able to escape their senses. As a result, he did not take any defensive measures. He just walked in openly. I wonder which expert has suddenly come to visit my Tianyuan family, and from the reactions of Mo, Ling, and Ofu, and the others, they clearly don't know about this uninvited guest's arrival, Jianshin thought. He was extremely confused. However, when he entered the room and saw the woman in white sitting alone at the table and leisurely eating the spirit fruit on the table, he couldn't help but be startled. "Fairy Haoyue!" Jianshin subconsciously cried out. Surprise filled his face. Fairy Haoyue sat there openly and took a bite of the fruit that was originally meant for Jianshin. She looked at Jianshin with a faint smile and said, "You're so cautious, even in your own home. It looks like the renowned patriarch of the Tianyuan clan doesn't live a very carefree life." Jianshin let out a sigh of relief. He ignored Fairy Haoyue's teasing and said, "Fairy Haoyue, you've suddenly appeared in the southern region. It looks like the matters of the Xiandao dynasty have been perfectly resolved." Fairy Haoyue stood up. With a wave of her hand, the door immediately closed, blocking Siyu and the others behind Jianshin. She said indifferently, "The matter is a huge matter that will be difficult to resolve for the Xiandao dynasty, but it's nothing to me. I've come this time to take a look at your situation and to bid farewell to you." Fairy Haoyue paused before continuing. "Before I leave, you can tell me if there's anything you can't resolve. For example, the Earth Spirit Sect." Chapter 1959. Fairy Haoyue said seriously. The Earth Spirit Sect was on the same side as Jianshin, yet they had launched a sneak attack on Jianshin at a time like this without any regard for the bigger picture. Moreover, they had even mobilized a divine king, which made her feel extremely unhappy. She wanted to properly punish the Earth Spirit Sect. However, Jianshin shook his head and politely declined Fairy Haoyue's good intentions. He understood that if he let Fairy Haoyue take part, it would be much easier for him to get justice from the Earth Spirit Sect than the Divine King. However, he felt like he owed Fairy Haoyue enough. Although he had helped Fairy Haoyue quite a lot in the past, what Fairy Haoyue had done for him in the past few years was more than enough. Moreover, he did not want someone else to deal with problems for him whenever he encountered them. If this continued, he would probably end up relying on them. That would only be detrimental to him. "You stubborn, uncivilized blockhead. I've helped you out of goodwill. Yet you've actually turned me down. Just think about how great of a price the Xiandao dynasty paid just to get me to take action. Do you think the Earth Spirit Sect will take you seriously with your mere cultivation as an overgod? If it were not for the fact that a primordial realm expert had appeared in your divine kingdom of Pingtian, making the Earth Spirit Sect hesitate, how much longer do you think you can live? With your talent and your grievances with the Earth Spirit Sect run deep, the Earth Spirit Sect will never let you grow. Do you still think the Divine King can help you? I've already asked around before I came. The ancestor of the Earth Spirit Sect has already reached the primordial realm several 100,000 years ago. He's not someone the Divine King who has just reached the primordial realm can contend against. Fairy Haoyue glared at Jianshin and said a lot of things in a single breath. She seemed rather exasperated, as if she expected better from him. "Thank you for your concern, Fairy Haoyue. Jianshin appreciates it." Jianshin clasped his fist at Fairy Haoyue. "How infuriating. Whatever, if you want to deal with it yourself, then deal with it yourself. What does your life have to do with me?" Fairy Haoyue said in annoyance. Her chest heaved slightly. She was quite furious. Fairy Haoyue, please rest here for a while. I've just returned to the clan, so I have some matters to deal with. So farewell." Jianshin smiled awkwardly and left the room, leaving Fairy Haoyue sulking by herself. Afterwards, Jianqin gathered all the elders of the Tianyuan family and distributed the various items he had purchased in the imperial capital of the Xiandao dynasty. At the same time, he established an armory in the forbidden grounds of the back courtyard. He stored all the remaining pills, cultivation methods, battle skills, and saint artifacts in there. Once someone in the clan reached a certain level of strength and made contributions to the clan, they could enter the armory to choose items. As for the 3 supreme quality saint artifacts, the minimum requirement to use them was over God. As no one had any use for them, Jianqin placed one of them in the armory as well. However, to Jianqin's pity, none of the 3 supreme quality saint artifacts were suitable for him. He had basically searched through all the shops in the imperial capital of the Xiandao dynasty, but he had failed to find a supreme quality saint artifact that satisfied him. As a result, he was still using the startling rainbow sword. After arranging everything, Jianqin took out 2 formation banners from his space ring in the end. He began to set them up around the Tianyuan family. The 2 formation banners were for attack and defense. Jianqin had spent quite a lot of divine crystals to purchase the 2 divine king level formations from the imperial capital of the Xiandao dynasty. With the protection of the 2 formations, the Tianyuan family was truly free of worries as long as the divine king did not appear. They did not have to fear any external enemies below the divine king. A day later, the entire Tianyuan family was enveloped by the divine king level formations. They pulsed with powerful energy. Jianqin stood in the clan and looked at the 2 divine king level formations that had already been activated. He finally smiled victoriously. Only now could he truly be at ease with the Tianyuan family. I can truly be at ease now that the clan is protected by these 2 formations. Xinjian appeared before Jianqin and also looked at the divine king level formations as he murmured to himself softly. Afterwards, Xinjian looked at Jianqin and said sternly, "Jianqin, I won't be staying here for much longer. I'll be leaving soon as well." "You're leaving?" Jianqin stared at Xinjian in surprise. Xinjian nodded. "When I broke through to Overgod, I could vaguely sense a call from the depths of outer space. As my strength increased, the call became more and more powerful. It was only because you needed my help at that time that I stayed behind. Now that the Tianyuan family is protected by the 2 divine king level formations, there's no point in me staying any longer. It's time for me to leave." Jianqin fell silent. Ever since he had arrived in the saint's world, he had always been with Xinjian. He had grown from a weak deity to an over-god who reigned over an entire region. Now that Xinjian suddenly wanted to leave, he felt rather reluctant to part with him. Their experiences in the past few years had already established a deep friendship between the 2 of them. They were like brothers who had gone through life and death together. Once they left, they would definitely have to travel far away. Who knew when they would meet again? As a matter of fact, they did not even know if they would meet again in the dangerous saint's world. "When do you plan on leaving?" Jianqin asked. His heart became rather heavy. "Once the battle here is over, I will prepare to leave." Xinjian looked at the sky with a deep gaze as he spoke in a flat tone. In the blink of an eye, more than half of the half-month ceasefire had passed. The next morning, Fairy Haoyue called Jianqin over. As soon as she saw Jianqin, Fairy Haoyue directly said, "I plan on going to the branch of the heavenly demon religion on the cloud plain. Are you coming?" Jianqin was surprised when he heard that. He said, "That's the headquarters of the heavenly demon religion on the cloud plain. It's obviously a dangerous place. Why are you going there?" "It's just a branch. Even if it's a dangerous place, that's only for regular infinite primes." Fairy Haoyue continued, "The Empyrean demon cult has split into 3 armies, waging war against 3 regions at the same time. Their actions are definitely not as simple as a simple invasion of territory. I think there must be some unspeakable secret behind this war, so I plan on going and taking a look. I want to see what they're trying to do. You'll offend the heavenly demon religion if you do that." Jianqin said with some worry. Even Tian Shuang did not want Fairy Haoyue to be involved with the heavenly demon religion, so he naturally did not want Fairy Haoyue to offend the heavenly demon religion either. The heavenly demon religion was an extremely powerful organization. Even the peak organizations that stood at the apex of the cloud plain feared them. The slightest mistake could even lead to trouble for the Moon God Hall. Fairy Haoyue rolled her eyes at Jianqin and said, "Since when have you become so fearful? The heavenly demon religion is indeed very powerful, but I'm not afraid. Moreover, I'm just going to take a look and understand what they're planning. It's not like I'm going to destroy their entire branch." And it just so happens that the 3 vice leaders of the heavenly demon religion are away right now, so the headquarters is quite weak. It's the perfect time to infiltrate their headquarters. Jianqin hesitated for a while before making up his mind. All right, I'll go with Fairy Haoyue to the heavenly demon religion's headquarters to take a look. I'll see what unspeakable motives they have for starting this war. Infiltrating the heavenly demon religion's headquarters on the cloud plain was definitely an extremely bold and risky move. This was because no one among the 6 ancient empires in the southern region of the cloud plain had the ability to do so. However, the Blood Sun Empire feared the heavenly demon religion. Even if they had supreme experts, they would not do something like that. Only Fairy Haoyue had the strength and courage to directly target the heavenly demon religion's headquarters. The heavenly demon religion's headquarters must be heavily protected by formations. I can break through the formations inside, but it'll be rather difficult for me to do it without causing any disturbances by myself. As a result, you need to find 3 other people apart from you. I'll give the 4 of you the Moonlight Illumination Formation to assist me, Fairy Haoyue continued. Chapter 1960. However, what Fairy Haoyue said afterwards made Jianqin rather hesitant. He said rather unconfidently, "But the strongest person I can find right now is only an overgod. The formation in the heavenly demon religion's headquarters is obviously extremely powerful. Will we be able to break through it with our strength?" "I don't want you to break through the formation. I just want the 4 of you to form the Moonlight Illumination Formation to conceal the disturbance," said Fairy Haoyue. Jianqin considered it seriously and said, "All right, I'll go inform them right now." Afterwards, Jianqin left and called Xinjian, Siyu, and Houston over. He told them the details sternly. What? Fairy Haoyue wants to infiltrate the heavenly demon religion's headquarters? Xinjian, Siyu, and Houston were all shocked. Their faces all became extremely stern. That's right. Fairy Haoyue should be able to do that. However, if she wants to break through the formation without alerting anyone, she'll need our help. Are you going or not? Jianqin said seriously. Xinjian, Houston, and Siyu said nothing. They had all been stunned by Fairy Haoyue's actions. In their eyes, she was just too bold. After a moment of silence, Xinjian said, "Based on the current situation, our war against the heavenly demon religion definitely won't end in a short amount of time. If the war drags on, it'll be extremely disadvantageous for all of us. As a matter of fact, there's even a chance that we'll die if we continue to fight for a long time. If we can use Fairy Haoyue's strength to infiltrate the heavenly demon religion's headquarters and tamper with it, we might be able to end the war prematurely." "Jianqin, when do we set off?" Houston asked as well. Clearly he had made up his mind. In the end, Siyu expressed his opinion as well. He had basically grown up with Jianqin, so he would go wherever Jianqin went. Even if he knew it was suicide, he would not hesitate at all. "Before we set off for the heavenly demon religion's headquarters, we need to grasp the Moonlight Illumination Formation," said Jianqin. Afterwards, Jianqin, Siyu, and Houston announced that they would enter seclusion to heal and that no one was to disturb them. They activated the Divine King level protective formation, enveloped the entire clan before they left the provincial city silently with Fairy Haoyue. 3 days later, in an ancient mountain range far from the divine kingdom of Pingtian, there was an extremely well-hidden gorge. The entrance to the gorge was several thousand meters deep, and it was covered by a layer of lush vegetation and vines. It was very difficult to discover the existence of the gorge from the outside. This canyon was triangular in shape. It was narrow at the top and wide at the bottom. At the entrance to the ground, it was only a dozen meters in diameter. However, at the bottom of the canyon, it was an open space that was thousands of feet wide. At this moment, the bottom of the gorge that should have been extremely dark was illuminated by the gentle moonlight. Powerful pulses of energy permeated the surroundings, forming a tremendous pressure that crushed all the vegetation at the bottom of the gorge to pieces. Jianqin, Shenzhen, Houston, and Siu stood in a special position, forming a formation. A white barrier completely condensed from moonlight force enveloped an area of several thousand meters, with the four of them at the center. The four of them bathed in the gentle moonlight as well, making them shine brightly. However, at a closer glance, it was quite obvious that the moonlight force did not originate from the four of them. Instead, it originated from a crystal in their hands. The four of them were able to form this moonlight illuminating sky formation by controlling the moonlight energy contained within the crystals and cooperating with each other. Fairy Hayua hovered in the air as she watched the four of them cast the formation nearby. She said, "There's basically no problems with the moonlight illumination formation anymore. The formation doesn't possess any offensive abilities, nor does it possess any defensive abilities. However, it can conceal any disturbances within the formation. As long as it doesn't exceed the limits of the formation, even the three vice leaders of the heavenly demon religion won't be able to sense what's happening within the formation. With the assistance of the moonlight illumination formation, I have complete confidence that we can infiltrate the headquarters of the heavenly demon religion without alerting anyone. Let's go. It's time for us to set off." Afterwards, the five of them left the hidden gorge and directly made their way to the headquarters of the heavenly demon religion on the cloud plain. In an extremely remote and desolate plain in the southern region of the cloud plain, the sky was filled with endless darkness. There was no sunlight at all. The ground was covered in blood. It was dark red, as if it had been poured with blood. In the depths of this desolate and deathly still land that seemed to have fallen into eternal darkness, there was a majestic ancient castle that silently stood there. The ancient castle was extremely large. It was completely dark red, as if it had been dyed with endless blood. Before they even got close, they seemed to be able to smell the thick stench of blood. There was also the smell of death that permeated between the heavens and the earth. In particular, gusts of chilling wind that seemed to let out ghostly wails and howls made the ancient castle that stood in the darkness appear even more eerie, causing people to tremble in fear. Originally, there was no chilling wind around the ancient castle. It was terrifyingly silent. However, with the recent battles at the front lines, chilling wind began to blow around the ancient castle. If one's perception was extremely strong, they would even be able to sense that the chilling wind was constantly revolving around the top floor of the ancient castle. There it formed an invisible vortex that was invisible to the naked eye. It was as if there was something there that was attracting the ghastly winds that were howling like ghosts. The ancient castle was the headquarters of the branch of the heavenly demon religion on the cloud plain. The headquarters of the heavenly demon religion was a forbidden place to the experts of the cloud plain. Let alone the divine king, even infinite primes would not approach this place so easily. However, at this moment, a faint figure appeared in the world that seemed to have fallen into eternal darkness. She seemed to have fused with the space there, such that even experts like the divine king were unable to discover her existence. With a flash, she had already approached the ancient castle silently. As the headquarters of the heavenly demon religion, the defenses of the ancient castle were naturally extremely tight. Layers of formations that concealed space enveloped the inside and outside of the castle. There were even formations at the level of primordial realm experts among them. However, these formations were like decorations before the figure that seemed to have fused with space. They were completely useless. In the end, the figure approached the ancient castle with ease. A large army of the heavenly demon religion gathered outside the castle under the lead of a divine king. At this time, the door of the dark red castle suddenly opened. A white-clothed man walked out with his hands behind his back. He was expressionless as he strode out. His pale face revealed a hint of femininity. He was as handsome as a woman. People couldn't help but take a few more glances at him. "Greetings, Protector Tseng." The divine king who stood at the front of the army immediately bowed when he saw the white-robed man. The white-robed man nodded emotionlessly and said coldly, "Vice Leader Huayan has orders for you to set off immediately. Remember, you have to complete the Vice Leader's mission cleanly. As for the God Kings, the protectors of our Hall of Protectors will deal with them." "Yes. Yes, sir." What Protector Zeng didn't notice was that when he opened the gate of the castle and walked out of it, a faint shadow flashed by and disappeared into the castle. It was only a few meters away from him. Inside the gloomy castle, in a very secluded place, the white-robed fairy Haoyue slowly emerged from the void. She stared ahead with her beautiful eyes and could not help but frown. She murmured in a low voice, "The formations in this castle are indeed much more powerful than the ones outside. They're not on the same level at all. This should be the place that the heavenly demon religion truly protects. The formations outside must have been casually set up by the vice leaders. If I want to pass through these formations without alerting anyone, I'll have to rely on Jianqin and the others to use the moonlight illumination formation." As she spoke, the bright moon divine hall, which had shrunk to the size of a palm, lay quietly in fairy Haoyue's palm. With a thought, several streaks of white light shot out from the bright moon divine hall and turned into 4 figures. They were Jianqin, Shunjian, Houston, and Siyu. "We're already in the headquarters of the heavenly demon religion. Follow me closely and don't make any noise to avoid exposing ourselves," Fairy Haoyue warned the people behind her. Jianqin and the others all nodded solemnly. They all knew that they had truly entered a tiger's den, where danger lurked everywhere. Chapter 1961. Jianqin, Siyu, Houston, and Xinjian looked at one another and immediately got to work. The 4 of them had practiced the formation before, so they had already developed a tacit understanding with one another. Casting down the moonlight illumination formation was a piece of cake. They were extremely familiar with it. Very soon, the 4 of them cast down the moonlight illumination formation perfectly with their combined efforts. The 4 of them were enveloped by pure moonlight force, which shone brightly. With the 4 of them at the center, a barrier completely condensed from moonlight force appeared out of nowhere, enveloping an area of several hundred meters. Even though the formation had been completed, apart from the dazzling moonlight that was emitted from the formation itself, there was not a single trace of energy fluctuation being emitted. As a result, the moonlight illumination formation could only be seen with the naked eye. It was impossible to discover it with the senses of the soul. The moonlight illumination formation did not possess any offensive or defensive abilities. Its only use was to block out all disturbances within the formation. That was under the premise that they did not exceed the limits of the moonlight illumination formation. Fairy Haoyue did not hesitate when she saw that the moonlight illumination formation had been completed. She immediately began to get through the formation. She was rather stern as the laws of the primordial realm descended on her. Every single action she made possessed devastating might. However, she purposefully suppressed the might of the primordial realm, so it did not erupt. She concealed it perfectly. Fairy Haoyue got through the formation extremely quickly. In just under a minute, there was a hiss, and a hole gradually appeared in the formation that blocked the entrance to the next floor, revealing a dark tunnel. Chilling winds blew in the tunnel as demonic aura surged into the sky. An extremely pure and dense demonic aura leaked out from the tunnel as well. In order to not attract attention, I've only opened an entrance to the formation temporarily. It'll close up automatically very soon, so let's go in. Fairy Haoyue said to Jianqin and the others. With a wave of her hand, moonlight force flashed, and the demonic aura in the tunnel completely dispersed. With a flash, she entered the tunnel to the next floor. Jianqin, Siyu, Houston, and Xinjian immediately dispelled the formation and entered the tunnel in a flash. Soon after the four of them entered, the whole fairy Haoyue had created in the formation completely closed up and returned to its original state. The headquarters of the heavenly demon religion only seemed like an extremely large castle from the outside. However, the interior was so large that it was basically a miniature world. The space on each floor was far larger than the castle itself. In particular, the various halls, rooms, and so on and so forth were all independent worlds. The castle was covered in formations. Every single formation was extremely powerful, either displayed openly or hidden in space. Just the invisible pulses they gave off were enough to make Jianqin and the others shiver in fear. As a matter of fact, the four of them did not even dare to expand the senses of their souls with their strength. They were afraid that a divine king would be hiding somewhere they could not detect, which would expose them. As a result, the four of them could only follow behind Fairy Haoyue. Along the way, Jianqin and the others avoided all the dangerous regions under Fairy Haoyue's lead. At the same time, they avoided all the probing of the divine king. They advanced through the heavenly demon religion silently without anyone noticing. It had to be mentioned that the security of the headquarters of the heavenly demon religion was extremely tight. If regular infinite primes ventured in, their lives would be in danger. However, Fairy Haoyue was no regular infinite prime. Under her lead, they encountered no danger at all. As the five of them rapidly advanced, they gradually approached the core region of the heavenly demon religion's headquarters. Fairy Haoyue's face gradually became stern. This should be the entrance to the upper floor, but there's an extremely powerful, concealing formation there. Fairy Haoyue stopped at the end of a corridor. She stared ahead as a rare sliver of sternness appeared on her face. Trapping formations and killing formations exist together, as well as illusionary formations. These formations are so powerful that even 7th heavenly layer infinite primes will probably die if they enter. It looks like the upper floor should be the core region of the heavenly demon religion's headquarters. Perhaps the true objective of the heavenly demon religion's war lies here. Fairy Haoyue said sternly. After studying the formation for a while, she said confidently, "However, this formation still can't stop me. It's just that getting through this formation will cause such a great disturbance that the moonlight illumination formation probably won't be able to cover it up. Set up the formation." After a moment of thought, Fairy Haoyue made up her mind. "Fairy Haoyue, please wait." At this moment, Houston suddenly said. His face was uneasy. Fairy Haoyue looked at Houston. Jianqin, Xinjian, and Siyu also looked at Houston. "Uncle Xiu, what's wrong?" Jianqin asked in confusion. Uncle Xiu stared at the formation before him. After a moment of silence, he said, "Perhaps this isn't the right path." Jianqin, Xinjian, and Siyu immediately became surprised when they heard that. They all stared at Houston in doubt. Even Fairy Haoyue stared at Houston in surprise. She asked, "How are you so sure that this isn't the right path?" "Because of this." With a thought from Houston, a thumb-sized bead slowly floated out from between his eyebrows. The bead was blood red, as if it was condensed from endless blood. It was enchanting, but also carried a bit of evil. This orb was the amigami that Jianqin had given to Houston. Fairy Haoyue stared at the amigami for a moment. She said, "This is a high-grade demonic artifact. You're able to use this artifact with your current strength. It seems that you've received the recognition of the artifact's artifact spirit." Houston nodded. He already knew about Amigami's artifact spirit. He said, "Just now, Amigami's artifact spirit told me to take another path." Fairy Haoyue was silent for a moment. she said. Since that's the case, then lead the way. The 5 of them changed their path. Next, Houston led the way. They rushed towards the location that Amagami had told Uncle Shio. Not long after, the 5 of them stopped. It wasn't that they didn't want to continue, but that they had reached the end. There was no path ahead. There's no formation here. It's a dead end. Fairy Haoyue looked around and frowned. Chapter 1962. A gleam of light flashed through the eyes of Jianqin, Xinjian, and Siyu. Amagami's sudden actions had filled them with caution. Even Houston was slightly surprised because he was not the one who had acted like this. Instead, it was Amagami's own reaction. Everything that had unfolded before him had exceeded Houston's expectations. Only Fairy Haoyue remained calm, without any change in her expression. This was the confidence that came from her great strength. However, in the next moment, all of their eyes suddenly narrowed. Even Fairy Haoyue was no exception. Everyone stared ahead in shock. Enveloped by the red light from Amagami, the scene before them changed. The stone wall at the end of the corridor that had originally been a dead end had silently vanished, revealing a long, winding path. It was dark red inside, radiating with a chilling aura. What a profound formation! Even I failed to sense it. Fairy Haoyue frowned as she stared at the winding path up ahead as she murmured. The light in her eyes flickered, and she looked at the Empyrean demon orb. She sank into her thoughts and became surprised. This should be the correct path. Houston stared ahead. After studying the path for a while, he called everyone over. They walked forward under Amagami's red light. Along the way, none of them left Amagami's range because they had discovered that only within Amagami's red light could they successfully pass through the illusionary formation that even Fairy Haoyue had failed to sense. Once they left Amagami's range, they would appear in the same dead end again. The stone wall in front of them seemed to be solid as well. They felt heavy when they touched it with their hands. When they passed through the illusionary formation through Amagami, it was like they had passed through space. They had left their original world and arrived in another world. However, at this moment, the Empyrean demon began to tremble violently. Its red light flickered as well. Swish! Suddenly, Amagami turned into a streak of red light and completely broke free from Houston's control. It continued to rush forward. Oh no, I can't control Amagami anymore. Houston's face changed. This was the headquarters of the Empyrean demon cult, so danger lurked everywhere. If they caused too great of a disturbance, they would be exposed. Chase it! Jianqin called out. They immediately pursued Amagami. Amagami was a god artifact, after all. Moreover, it possessed the artifact spirit. With the speed of a god artifact, it was impossible for Jianqin and the other over-gods to catch up to it. In just a short while, the distance between them and Amagami grew larger and larger. If it were not for the vague connection between Houston and Amagami, they probably would not have been able to find any traces of Amagami at all. Don't resist. I'll take you with me. At this moment, Fairy Haoyue's voice rang out. With that, gentle moonlight force revolved around Jianqin and the others. Afterwards, their speed suddenly skyrocketed, and they pursued Amagami at an extremely terrifying speed. They moved so quickly that even Jianqin and the others were unable to see their surroundings clearly. Amagami turned into a red streak of light as it rapidly flew through the headquarters of the heavenly demon religion. However, it was only a god artifact after all. It was impossible for it to move through the headquarters as silently as Fairy Haoyue, avoiding everyone's eyes and ears. As a result, the pulses of energy and the presence of a god artifact that Amagami gave off as it flew were naturally discovered by many people. Who is it? Many people called out within the headquarters of the Empyrean demon cult. At the same time, powerful senses of the soul swept over from all directions, directly locking onto the Empyrean demon orb. That's a god artifact. Whose god artifact is that? Why haven't I seen it before? It doesn't belong to our heavenly demon religion. Oh no, there's an intruder! Instantly, the surroundings were filled with people. Divine King Realm experts either walked out of secret rooms or appeared from the void, covered by formations. They came from all directions and chased after Amagami. "There's an intruder in the headquarters," quickly informed the vice leader. An old divine king hovered in the void. His ancient eyes shone brightly. He locked onto Amagami with his soul, and his ancient voice reverberated throughout the entire space. However, as the headquarters of the heavenly demon religion, this ancient castle had layers upon layers of formations and many spaces within. The place that Jianqin and the others had entered with Amagami's help was clearly another space that had been opened up within the castle. Hence, the old god's voice was only transmitted within the space, and did not reach all the spaces within the castle. However, even with that being the case, the old god king's words were enough to inform all the god kings on the floor. However, at this moment, the white-clothed fairy Haoyue silently appeared behind the old divine king. She gently pressed her slender, white hand against the old divine king's head. Then, she pressed down gently. With a bang, the old divine king's head exploded. He was directly destroyed in both body and soul. A mighty divine king realm expert had died, just like that, without being able to put up any resistance. He did not even know who had killed him before he died. Fairy Haoyue hovered in the air. Moonlight force revolved around her. She coldly stared at her surroundings. Then, she formed a seal with her hands in front of her. A palm-sized full moon appeared in her hand. The power contained within it was terrifying enough to destroy the world. Jianqin and the others paled in shock. In the next moment, the full moon suddenly shattered, turning into several dozen strands of moonlight force that were as thick as fingers. Like arrows, they shot into the surroundings with terrifying might. Spurt, 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 spurt. All the exposed divine kings on this floor were struck by the moonlight force without exception. They did not even have the time to cry out before their souls shattered and dispersed. At that moment, the entire floor fell silent. Jianqin, Siyu, Houston, and Xinjian stood behind Fairy Haoyue. They were all shocked when they personally witnessed how Fairy Haoyue had killed several divine kings effortlessly. Even though they knew the primordial realm was very powerful, they could not help but feel shocked when they personally witnessed the might of a primordial realm expert. None of the divine kings were weak. Any single one of them was not something the four of them could fend off. As a matter of fact, they could not even flee. However, they were so fragile before Fairy Haoyue. It was true that divine kings were like ants. Our whereabouts have been exposed. The 3 vice leaders should return very soon, Fairy Haoyue said gently. Originally, she was confident that she could infiltrate the headquarters of the heavenly demon religion silently without being discovered by anyone. However, her plan had been ruined by Amagami. However, Fairy Haoyue did not make a fuss about it. She directly chased after Amagami with Jianqin and the others. When Fairy Haoyue caught up to Amagami, Amagami was hovering beside an extremely huge pool of blood. The pool of blood was extremely huge, like a vast ocean. From afar, the sky and sea seemed to be connected, stretching as far as the eye could see. Huge waves surged within the sea of blood, kicking up waves of blood that were several hundred meters tall. When they struck the air, they produced great booms. Chilling winds blew in the air above the sea of blood, forming an extremely huge whirlpool that revolved. Vaguely, countless faces seemed to appear as they shrieked out. This seemed like a scene straight out of hell. It was chilling and terrifying. Jianqin, Xinjian, Houston, and Siyu stood beside the pool of blood as they stared at the boundless sea of blood. They were all very stern. This should be the greatest secret of the Empyrean demon cult. They started this war just to create this scene, said Jianqin. Fairy Haoyue stared at the churning sea of blood before her. Soon after, she stared at the whistling, chilling winds in the air. After a moment of silence, she muttered, gathering endless blood to form an ocean, then using a formation to absorb the essence of the blood, condensing it into 9 blood pearls, gathering the soul force of endless souls into one, extracting their essence and using a formation to refine it into 9 soul pearls. Just what is the heavenly demon religion trying to do? What soul pearls and blood pearls? Jianqin asked. He was also looking around, but he did not discover anything other than the sea of blood and the chilling winds. At the bottom of the sea of blood, there are 9 blood pearls that contain powerful energy. The chilling winds in the air are actually not wind, but the soul force absorbed by the formation. The soul force also nurtures 9 soul pearls. With your current strength, you can't see these things, Fairy Haoyue said. Jianqin said sternly, has the heavenly demon religion started this war to gather endless blood and condense them into blood pearls and tremendous soul force into soul pearls? Why would they do that? Fairy Haoyue shook her head. I don't understand that either. Even though the essence of the energy within the blood pearls can skyrocket a person's cultivation, and the soul force within the soul pearls can strengthen a person's soul, these pearls and soul pearls are condensed from weaker cultivators in the end. Their effects are basically negligible to stronger experts. With the heavenly demon religion's current strength, there's no need for them to go through so much trouble to set up all of this. Fairy Hao looked at the surroundings of the pool of blood, and she became stern. She said sternly, moreover, the entire pool of blood is protected by an extremely powerful formation. The formation is so powerful that even I shiver in fear. Let alone infinite primes, even chaotic primes will probably die if they fall into the formation. From the strength of the formation, the pool of blood is far more important than everything in the heavenly demon religion's branch on the cloud plane. Apart from the rumored great elder, I really can't think of anyone else who can cast down such a terrifying killing formation in the heavenly demon religion. Jianqin's face changed slightly when he heard about the great elder of the heavenly demon religion. He stared at the pool of blood and said sternly, did the great elder of the heavenly demon religion personally set up this place? The great elder of the heavenly demon religion was an existence that all the peak clans on the cloud plane feared. If it were not for the great elder of the heavenly demon religion, just the 3 vice leaders of the heavenly demon religion's branch on the cloud plane would not be able to cause much of a ruckus. As a result, Jianqin naturally struggled to remain calm when he heard that the great elder of the heavenly demon religion had personally set up this place. P.S. Please listen to Xiaoyao's public message. Once there are any changes to the update, Xiaoyao will inform you through the message. You can find me by searching Xingxingxiao 110. Chapter 1963. At this moment, the boundless sea of blood suddenly surged even more. Even the chilling winds formed from the tremendous amount of soul force in the surroundings became even more violent. Fairy Haoyue's eyes flickered with light as she stared at the sea of blood before her. She said, the heavenly demon religion is wantonly slaughtering people outside. They've paid the price of countless lives to condense these 9 blood beads and soul beads. At the same time, the 9 blood beads and soul beads constantly absorb the purification from the sea of blood and soul force, allowing them to become even more powerful. If the blood beads and soul beads aren't removed, the heavenly demon religion's slaughter won't stop. They'll continue until they're satisfied with the 9 blood beads and soul beads. Fairy Haoyue, can you take away the 9 blood beads and soul beads? We can't let the heavenly demon religion continue like this, Jianqin asked. Fairy Haoyue shook her head powerlessly. She gently sighed. The formation protecting this place is too powerful. I can't do anything about it. At this moment, Amagami suddenly arrived above Houston. A layer of blood-red light poured down from Amagami, enveloping Houston completely. A vague connection had already been established between Houston and Amagami's artifact spirit. When he was enveloped by the blood-red light, a thought from the artifact spirit was transmitted into Houston's head. Houston was stunned before becoming surprised. He raised his head and looked at the Amagami above him in some shock. After a moment of hesitation, he said to Jianqin and the others, "Amagami's artifact spirit has sent a message to me. I can bypass the obstructions of the formation and enter." Fairy Haoyue's eyes narrowed. She suddenly turned her head and stared at Houston. More accurately, she stared at the Amagami above Houston's head. After staring at it for a while, she said to Houston, "You need to understand that the formation is so powerful that even chaotic primes can die. If you really believe the artifact spirit and enter the formation, even I won't be able to save you once you encounter danger." "Uncle Xiao, don't take the risk." Jianqin stopped him as well. He deeply understood just how terrifying the great elders of the heavenly demon religion were. He refused to believe that a single artifact spirit could bypass the formation cast down by such an expert, unless Amagami had a great background, such as the Inata Tower or some other heaven-defying god artifact. However, according to what he knew, Amagami was only the famed treasure of the greatest demon monarch of the demon's world, the celestial demon saint. Although it was a god artifact, it was still quite far away from the peak. Xin Jian and Siyu also stopped Houston. They did not want Houston to take the risk and leave his life in the hands of an artifact spirit that could easily go out of control. Suddenly, powerful pulses of energy appeared behind Jianqin and the others. All the space within the headquarters of the heavenly demon religion gently trembled at that moment as a tremendous pressure permeated the surroundings. All the formations within the headquarters of the heavenly demon religion had been activated at that moment. Countless formations were linked together, forming an extraordinarily large killing formation in the end. It enveloped the entire castle. The 3 vice leaders of the heavenly demon religion have returned. "They've activated all the formations," Fairy Hoa stared behind her and said calmly. Jianqin, Siyu, Houston, and Xinjian were unable to remain as calm as Fairy Haoyue. Their hearts all sank as they became extremely stern. "There's no time. Let me try and see if I can destroy the arrangements the heavenly demon religion has set up here," Houston said firmly, ignoring everyone's persuasion. He charged into the formation with a resolute expression without hesitation. Apart from his desire to destroy the heavenly demon religion's plan to condense blood and soul beads, there was another important factor behind his actions, which was the artifact spirit. Through his communication with the artifact spirit, Houston understood that there was something extremely important to the artifact spirit here. At the same time, there was also a great opportunity that belonged to him. Amagami sat on top of Houston's head. At the same time, he circulated the heavenly demon arts he cultivated. Demonic chi revolved around his body as he entered the terrifying killing formation that protected the pool of blood. As soon as he entered the killing formation, a terrifying killing intent permeated the surroundings. Just this killing intent alone was enough to almost tear Houston to pieces. If it were not for his heavenly demon arts and Amagami, he probably would not have been able to withstand the killing intent from the formation. Jianqin, Shenzhen, and Siyu stood outside the formation. They all stared at Houston nervously. However, they could not help but let out a sigh of relief when they saw Houston enter the killing formation and advance through it with great difficulty without being attacked by the formation. At the same time, the 3 of them were extremely puzzled. Why was such a powerful killing formation ineffective against Houston? Fairy Haoyue stared at the Amagami above Houston's head. She was surprised. She understood the terror of the killing formation better than anyone else. It was a supreme formation that could kill chaotic primes. Yet Houston, who was just an overgod, was actually able to move through it freely with a god artifact. She was extremely shocked by this. Amagami, the heavenly demon religion. Amagami, the heavenly demon religion. Fairy Haoyue murmured as the light in her eyes flickered. Houston advanced through the killing formation with great difficulty. He was like a leaf in the wind, about to fall. Even though the killing formation was not activated, the invisible, terrifying killing intent was still difficult for him to endure. Every single step seemed to require all of his strength. As a result, he advanced extremely slowly. At this moment, 3 figures hidden within the demonic aura gathered together in the headquarters of the heavenly demon religion. The 3 of us have searched the entire headquarters, but we've failed to find the intruder. Moreover, we activated the formation as soon as possible. So even if the intruder wants to escape, it's impossible for him to do so without anyone noticing. Where is the intruder hiding? One of them growled. If Jian had heard the voice, he would have immediately recognized it as the voice of one of the 3 vice leaders. "Huai-en, don't tell me the intruder has gone to the forbidden grounds," said Yi Huanyue. Her voice was rather weak, and as soon as she finished speaking, she coughed violently. Clearly she was injured. The forbidden grounds? Impossible. Vice sect leader Huai-en and the other vice sect leader cried out as soon as Yi Huayue finished speaking. The monstrous demonic aura around them began to pulse violently. If one could see their faces, it would not be difficult to discover that they had paled when they heard that the intruder had entered the forbidden grounds. Afterwards, the 3 of them shot toward the forbidden grounds as quickly as they could with a single movement, even though they did not believe that the intruder could find the hidden forbidden grounds. Even though they knew that the Great Elder had personally cast down a supreme formation in the forbidden grounds, they still did not dare to let their guard down. It is better to believe it than not to believe it. This was because they knew just how important the forbidden grounds were. If anything happened to the forbidden grounds, the Great Elder would never forgive them. Jianqin, Shenjian, and Siyu all let out a sigh of relief as they stood beside the pool of blood. Houston had successfully passed through the killing formation and arrived above the pool of blood safely. Afterwards, under Amigami's protection, he directly dove into the pool of blood below, vanishing from the sights of Jianqin and the others. However, Fairy Haoyue raised an eyebrow. She looked back and said, "The 3 vice leaders are hurrying over. Stay here and don't go out. I'll stop the 3 of them. Remember, if you don't want to get into trouble, don't reveal your identities to anyone." With that, Fairy Haoyue vanished from where she had been standing. At the same time, a strand of primordial realm laws permeated the surroundings of the pool of blood, completely purging the presences of Jianqin and the others. Chapter 1964. Around 5 minutes later, Houston, who had dived to the bottom of the sea of blood, finally resurfaced. His aged face carried an expression of unconcealable excitement and joy, and his eyes stared unblinkingly at his hands. To no surprise, he held 9 thumb-sized beads of blood in his hands. Every single bead was translucent and extremely bright. They shone with a dazzling red light, just like red agate stones. However, every single one of the 9 beads pulsed with extremely great energy, enough to even surprise overgods. Even the divine king's face changed. The energy within the 9 beads was just too great. If they exploded in a single moment, they would be able to unleash devastating power that could easily kill overgods. Jianqin, Shenjian, and Siyu noticed the 9 beads of blood in Houston's hands as well. They were all very stern. These 9 beads should be the beads condensed from the essence of endless blood that Fairy Haoyue mentioned. The heavenly demon religion has spent so much effort to condense these beads, yet Uncle Xiao has taken them all away. This matter will definitely cause a huge uproar in the heavenly demon religion. Jianqin was rather heavy-hearted. He could tell just how important this place was to the heavenly demon religion from the formations cast down here. Or in other words, just how important this place was to the Great Elder of the heavenly demon religion. If the Great Elder personally came to the cloud plane, the consequences would be unimaginable. Houston was about to leave after collecting the 9 beads of blood. However, his body stiffened slightly, and he raised his head to look at the sky. He stared at the huge swirl of Yin wind in the sky. After a moment of hesitation, He began to fly into the sky under the protection of the blood-red light from the Empyrean demon orb. Very soon, he was swallowed by the huge swirl of chilling wind. When he reappeared, there were 9 thumb-sized beads in his hands apart from the 9 thumb-sized beads. They were all jet-black beads. This black pearl contained an extremely powerful and incomparably pure soul power. Now, the 9 beads of blood and soul had all ended up in Houston's hands. At this moment, there was a flash, and the white-clothed fairy Hayua had already returned to Jianchen and the others. When she saw the 9 beads of blood and soul in Houston's hands, her eyes narrowed as well. She said with a heavy voice, "The heavenly demon religion will definitely alarm the true upper echelon now that they have lost the beads of blood and soul. It might even alarm the great elder. We can't stay here for long. We need to leave as soon as possible. The heavenly demon religion will probably make a huge move soon." At the same time, Houston understood the severity of the matter. After collecting the 9 beads of blood and soul, he immediately flew out. Just like how he entered, he made it out of the formation safely. However, passing through the formation was an extremely difficult matter for Houston. When he walked out of the formation, the terrifying killing intent that permeated the formation almost made him collapse. His face was pale. Fairy Hayua was stern. With a flip of her hand, the bright moon divine hall appeared. She said, "Enter the divine hall. We need to leave as soon as possible." Without any hesitation, Jianchen and the others immediately entered the bright moon divine hall. Fairy Hayua stowed the divine hall away and used her primordial realm laws to erase the presences and traces left behind by Jianchen and the others. She vanished in a flash, making her way out of the castle with lightning speed. Now, all the formations in the castle had been activated. Countless formations were connected, linking up with one another. As a result, the defenses of the castle were truly impregnable. Fairy Hayua was cold. Her eyes shone with a sharp light as she radiated with a terrifying presence. Under the layer of moonlight, she directly collided with the formations with the power of primordial realm laws. Boom! With her collision, the entire castle shook violently. Even though the killing formation before her had been fused with many other formations, it was still unable to endure Fairy Hayua's powerful strike. With a crack, it directly collapsed. However, Fairy Hayua did not slow down at all. She radiated with a surging presence as she rampaged through the various formations before her like a hot knife through butter. She quickly retreated from the castle. Even though the defenses of the castle were impregnable, there were no killing formations that could stop Fairy Hayua apart from the formations that protected the pool of blood. Even though all the formations in the castle were linked together, making them much more powerful, they were still unable to stop Fairy Hayua. At that moment, the headquarters of the heavenly demon religion that many infinite primes feared on the cloud plain, where they dared not approach at all, was like strolling through her own backyard in Fairy Hayua's eyes. They were unable to do anything to her at all. Boom! At this moment, a heavy sound that basically rang through the entire castle suddenly rang out. Fairy Hayua formed a seal and used an ability. She struck out with her full strength, piercing through the layers of formations and creating a hole in the castle. Afterwards, she flew out through the hole and vanished. At the same time, the 3 vice leaders of the branch of the heavenly demon religion on the cloud plain became bound by shackles condensed from moonlight force. They were unable to move at all. At this moment, the monstrous demonic aura around the 3 of them began to fluctuate intensely. Immediately, the 3 of them emitted a furious roar in unison. After using all of their strength, they finally shattered the restraints that were entangled around their bodies. Immediately, their bodies quietly disappeared from this place. When they appeared again, they had already arrived before the hole that Fairy Hayua had created. The 3 of them stared at the hole with ugly expressions. Their faces were extremely sunken. This ancient castle is a divine artifact with extremely powerful defense. only chaotic primes can pierce through a divine artifact. Once all the formations in our headquarters are activated, even ninth heavenly layer infinite primes won't be able to escape. However, these formations can't stop this person at all. Just who is this chaotic prime? Let's go to the Forbidden Grounds. The chaotic prime who broke into our headquarters has been in there for quite some time, said Jianqin. With that, the three of them vanished in a single instance. When they reappeared, they had arrived beside the pool of blood, standing outside the formation. Fortunately, the formation is fine. The Great Elder personally cast down the formation after all. Even if this person is a chaotic prime, they won't be able to get through it. The three of them all let out a sigh of relief when they saw that the formation was fine. They could ignore the fact that a chaotic prime had broken into their headquarters and killed many of their divine kings. They could even ignore the fact that the chaotic prime had pierced a hole in the castle. This was because they only needed to report this matter, and the higher-ups would naturally send people to deal with the chaotic prime. However, they could not allow anything to happen to the blood beads and soul beads in the Forbidden Grounds. However, when Huai instinctively looked towards the bottom of the pool of blood, his face suddenly froze. His face instantly paled while intense disbelief filled his face. He cried out, "The blood droplets! Why are the blood droplets gone?" The other two vice leaders were shocked when they heard that. They both looked at the pool of blood. With a single glance, both of their faces instantly turned incomparably pale, and they were almost scared out of their wits. "Oh no, the soul beads, the soul beads, the soul beads have disappeared as well," Ihui's trembling voice rang out. At that moment, the three vice leaders of the heavenly demon religion tottered slightly. They almost lost their footing as they became filled with fear. What do we do? The blood beads and soul beads have disappeared. How do we explain this to the higher-ups? Chapter 1965. In an unknown space extremely distant from the cloud plain, an extremely majestic divine hall stood there. It radiated with a terrifying pressure that could shake up the world. This divine temple seemed to be able to suppress a part of the sky. When it stood in this space, it seemed that even this independent unknown space had to submit, crawling at the feet of this divine temple. At this moment, two streaks of light suddenly appeared in a silent, dark room at the very top of the divine hall. They tore through the darkness like two bolts of lightning, illuminating the dark room with a sliver of light. Amagami. It's Amagami's presence. Ning Shuang, have you come to the saint's world? In the pitch-black secret room, a trembling and excited voice suddenly rang out. The voice was filled with endless longing. The two streaks of light that had suddenly appeared were actually a pair of eyes that shone brightly. It was a person's gaze. With the help of these two divine lights, one could vaguely see a figure sitting cross-legged in this secret chamber. The stalwart figure seemed to give off a terrifying presence that could crush the sky as he sat there. How many years has it been? How many years has it been? I've finally waited for this day. I've already set up everything in the saint's world. Ning Shuang, we'll meet again very soon. The voice filled with longing rang out again. 1,000,000 years of preparation, 1,000,000 years of hard work, 1,000,000 years of bitter waiting and anticipation were finally about to come true. Even though the owner of the voice had already cultivated a heart that would not waver even if the universe was destroyed, he could not help but tremble at that moment. He had been looking forward to this day for far, far too long. Master, this old servant has something important to report. At this moment, an old voice suddenly rang out from outside the room. It was filled with respect. Outside the secret chamber, an old man in a black robe appeared silently. The old man's eyes were deep, and there seemed to be a vast and endless universe hidden in them. Even through his eyes, one could see the endless rules of the world interweaving. It was as if the great path was rumbling, and there seemed to be a vast and huge universe evolving. Moreover, traces of aura leaked out from this old man from time to time. enough to shake the heavens and the earth. The strength of this old man was extremely strong. However, at this moment he bowed and stood respectfully outside the door of the secret room. His face was filled with respect. "Is it about the Yun State branch?" The voice in the secret chamber came out. "Exactly. Master, I've just received news that the 9 blood beads and soul beads that the branch on the cloud plane spent countless years condensing have been taken away by an unknown chaotic prime," the old man said politely. "I already know about this matter. You can leave now. The mission of the Cloud State branch has already been completed," said the person in the secret room. Hearing this, the old man was slightly startled. Then he bowed respectfully and said, "This old servant understands. This old servant will take his leave." As soon as his voice fell, the old man silently disappeared. The bright-eyed figure sat in the secret room and murmured again, "Since the Empyrean demon orb has appeared in the saint's world, they must have come as well. Sigh, it's a pity that my original body is still trapped. This clone can't go to the cloud plane." After the old man left, he directly arrived in a hall. 7 people had already been waiting there for quite some time. The 7 of them all possessed powerful presences. They were all experts who had reached the primordial realm. "Greetings to the Grand Elder." Upon seeing this old man, the 7 of them bowed in unison, their expressions filled with respect. Afterwards, one of them said, "Grand Elder, through the images and descriptions from the 3 vice leaders of the branch on the cloud plane, I've already roughly figured out who the person who infiltrated the branch is. She should be the person who ranked 3rd on the Divine Kings, throned several 100,000 years ago, Hao Yu. Hao Yu is extremely powerful. It's said that she killed an infinite prime back when she was in the Divine King's realm. Now that she's even more powerful, if we 7 elders face her, we probably won't be able to do anything to her even if we work together." The person who spoke was a beautiful woman who only seemed to be in her 20s. She was naturally enchanting, and every single action she made radiated with fatal temptation. At this moment, a terrifying pressure suddenly appeared. As if it could crush the sky, it engulfed the entire hall with a terrifying sense of destruction. Aside from the Grand Elder, the expressions of the 7 other powerful primordial realm experts changed as soon as the pressure appeared. Under the pressure, the 7 of them felt their chests tighten as they struggled to breathe. It was as if the surrounding space was squeezing towards them. "Grand Elder, do you want me to take action and capture the person who infiltrated the branch on the cloud plane?" A deep voice echoed through the hall. It was cold and emotionless, chilling and terrifying. The Grand Elder stood there emotionlessly. It was impossible to tell what he was feeling. He said, "There's no need. The mission of the branch on the cloud plane has already been completed. Don't interfere too much, just in case you ruin Master's plans." Hearing this, the 7 elders looked at each other and then accepted the order in unison. The frightening aura that enveloped the entire hall and seemed to be able to crush the heavens also disappeared following these words of the first elder. Princess Tai, and sat in her own residence within the imperial palace of the Shi Empire on the northern region of the Cloud Plain. She held an embroidered box in her hand as she studied it repeatedly. She was very curious. Just what is this Jianqin giving to my aunt and uncle? He's so mysterious, and he even said that they might like it. Princess Tai muttered to herself. However, she did not open the box in the end. She said in frustration, "It's just a pity that Aunt and my parents still haven't returned after so many days. I wonder when I'll be able to hand this box to Aunt. And my aunt's temper is rather bad. Jianqin is a supreme overgod after all. My aunt and uncle should accept something he gives them." Princess Tai felt rather uneasy. She looked at the box in her hand and felt uncertain. "Your Highness, the Emperor and Empress have returned." At this moment, a female attendant's voice rang out from outside. Princess Tai, Anne's eyes lit up when she heard that. She stowed the box away in her space ring and immediately ran out. In the Shi dynasty, it was extremely difficult for many princes and princesses to meet the emperor and empress. As a matter of fact, some princes and princesses would never be able to speak to the emperor or empress in their entire lives. However, Princess Taiyan was not one of them. Her status in the Shi dynasty was extremely special. She could meet the emperor and empress at any time. Chapter 1966. Princess Tai and bowed within a magnificent bedroom. She had a faint smile on her face. She was composed and casual, without any reservations at all. In front of her, a graceful and luxurious woman was standing behind a screen. Her face couldn't be seen clearly at all, and only a vague figure could be seen. She was the empress of the Shi dynasty. So it's Yen. I've just returned, yet you've come to visit me. You're quite well informed, the empress said from behind the screen. She spoke kindly and gently. Many things have happened in the empire recently. I was afraid that Aunt's mood would be affected. So I've specially come to keep you company, said Princess Ten. She was considerate, and at the same time, her voice was filled with concern. Sigh. The empress sighed gently as if something indescribably painful had affected her mood. At that moment, she became rather downcast. She said, Xian'er, come. Keep me company. Yes, Aunt. Princess Tai and made her way over slowly and entered the screen. She sat down beside the empress, gracefully. All right, Aunt, an extremely stunning supreme overgod has appeared in our northern region while you were gone, Princess Taiyan said. The light in her eyes shone as she carefully observed the empress' expression. Only when she saw how the empress did not react much did she continue. Although this supreme overgod isn't from our northern region, he really is powerful. I think there's no one in the entire northern region who can rival this supreme overgod because this supreme overgod has defeated the divine king as an overgod. And I've heard that this divine king is no ordinary divine king. He's a disciple of a large sect in the Xiandao dynasty. What's even more surprising is that this overgod was not injured at all after defeating the divine king. And do you think this overgod is powerful? The empress' expression did not change at all. She nodded slowly. He's able to match the divine king as an overgod and defeat him. That's right. He really is a supreme overgod with astonishing potential. With his strength, he can even compete with a person who ranks first on the overgod's plaque. Even Aunt thinks so too. I also think that this supreme overgod has the right to compete for first place on the overgod's plaque. Princess Taiyan smiled sweetly. She seemed to think of something and suddenly took out an embroidered box from her space ring. She said, all right, Ani, when I visited the supreme overgod last time, the supreme overgod told me to give this embroidered box to Andi or to young master. Princess Tai and paused when she reached there. She stared at the box in her hand and said after some thought, this must be the supreme overgod's gift to Aunt and the young master. Hearing this, the empress frowned and said, Xian'er, why do you keep everyone's things for me? It's not like you don't understand some principles. You should return this brocade box to someone else. The empress' voice was dignified, leaving no room for doubt. This, Princess Tai, and was rather troubled. As soon as she thought about how solemn Jianqin was when he passed the box to her, she understood that the item inside would definitely be anything but simple. However, she understood the empress' temper extremely well. Since the empress was unwilling to accept the box, it would be useless no matter what she did in the end. Yes, Aunt. Xian'er understands. Princess Tai, and was rather gloomy. She accepted the box in her hand unhappily and left the empress' residence before long. However, Princess Tai and did not forget about Jianqin's orders. She only needed to give the box to the empress or emperor Shi. Since it did not work with the empress, she went to find the Shi emperor. With Princess Tai Anne's identity and status, meeting emperor Shi was naturally no problem at all. Very soon, she arrived in Emperor Shi's study. When Princess Tai saw the emperor who possessed supreme status in the Shi dynasty, the ruler who was renowned in the northern region and had turned the Shi dynasty upside down ever since he became emperor, he sat on a precious throne carved from crystal. He held his forehead with one hand as he rested with his eyes closed. However, on his resolute and dignified face, there was a deep exhaustion. "Xian, so it's you. Xian, why are you looking for uncle?" Emperor, she asked. His voice was filled with gentleness. He did not move at all from his throne. He did not even open his eyes. At that moment, Emperor, she did not possess his usual coldness. He did not possess his usual awe-inspiring presence. He only seemed like a lonely and sorrowful figure. "Uncle." Princess Tai, and looked at Emperor Shi's exhausted figure and hesitated. Originally, she wanted to give the box to her uncle, but she found it rather difficult to do so when she saw how exhausted he was. Uncle has always been worried about his long-lost daughter. He's already exhausted. Now that he finally has a chance to rest, do I really have to disturb him like this? Princess Tai thought. In the end, she sighed inside and did not choose to take out the box at a time like this. Within the Tianyuan family in the Dong, and province of the divine kingdom of Pingtian in the southern region of the Cloud Plain, Fairy Haoyue and Jianqin's group had all returned to the clan. When they left, they did not raise any suspicions, and when they returned, they did so silently as well. Without the 9 blood beads and soul beads, the heavenly demon religion will probably cause a great disturbance. You have to be careful. Don't let any traces leak out, or no one will be able to save you. Fairy Haoyue personally cast down a barrier in a secret room, deep underground, as she spoke extremely sternly. At this moment, Amagami suddenly floated out from Houston's sea of consciousness. She shone with dazzling red light, and in the next moment, 10 thumb-sized beads flew out from Amagami. The 10 beads were 5 soul beads and 5 blood beads. They floated before Jianqin, Houston, Shenzhen, Siyu, and Fairy Haoyue. Amagami's artifact spirit has messaged me, saying that these blood beads and soul beads are a gift to everyone. Thank you for your assistance. Houston opened his mouth and conveyed the artifact spirit's message. Although these soul orbs and blood orbs are formed from the blood and soul energy of countless living beings, because the blood orbs and soul orbs have been refined by the Great Array for many years, they have long since transformed into the purest crystals. Therefore, absorbing the energy and soul energy inside will not leave behind any hidden dangers. Fairy Haoyue studied the blood beads and soul beads seriously. She nodded. That's right. The formation has refined the blood beads and soul beads for many years, so the malice and unstable factors within them have been purged long ago. As a result, the blood beads and soul beads have become great nourishment. They can increase your strength by quite a lot. As she said that, Fairy Haoyue glanced at Jianqin. With a wave of her hand, she sent the blood beads and soul beads to Jianqin. She said, "These blood beads and soul beads are useless to me now. Take them." Chapter 1967. Looking at the blood beads and soul beads, Xinjian and Siyu were also hesitant. Like Jianqin, they didn't accept the blood beads and soul beads. After a while, Xinjian said, "Although I'm not a righteous person, I'm also not part of the demonic path. The heavenly demon religion slaughters tens of thousands of lives and uses countless lives to condense these 9 blood beads and soul beads. Although these blood beads and soul beads can greatly increase one's cultivation, if I were to use them, then what difference would there be between me, Shenjian, and the people of the demonic path?" As he spoke, Shenjian handed the 2 blood beads and soul beads floating in front of him to Houston. With a solemn expression, he said, "Houston, these things aren't suitable for me to use. However, you practice the demonic path cultivation method, so there shouldn't be any taboos in this aspect. Thus, consider these blood beads and soul beads as a gift from me." Xun Jian's words were resolute and decisive. Although these blood beads and soul beads could greatly increase one's cultivation, they didn't seem to be tempting to Xun Jian at all. Shen Jian is right. These blood beads and soul beads are indeed not suitable for us. After all, we're not people of the demonic path. The cultivation method that we practice is also not a demonic path cultivation method. If we were to use these products condensed from the blood and soul beads of countless lives to cultivate, it would affect our state of mind. In serious cases, it could even create inner demons that would affect our future cultivation. Jianqin also handed the blood beads and soul beads to Houston. Although the blood beads and soul beads had been refined by the Great Array and all the evil qi and unstable impurities had been removed, their formation was truly too cruel. Jianqin had his own principles. If these blood beads and soul beads were taken from the bodies of demonic beasts or various ominous beasts, then he naturally wouldn't reject them. After all, his ideology had already been formed. However, these blood beads and soul beads weren't taken from the bodies of demonic beasts. Thus, he couldn't accept them in his heart. "I don't need them either, Uncle Xiao. You can take them for yourself," Siyu also said, and returned the blood bead and soul bead to Houston. Houston looked at the 4 blood beads and soul beads floating in front of him. After a short hesitation, he said, "Well, since you don't need them, I won't be unreasonable. I'll accept them on behalf of Amagami. They're very useful to Amagami. Why would a divine weapon need these things?" Fairy Haoyue stared at Houston and said unhurriedly. Houston shook his head and said, "Actually, I'm also very curious about this. During this trip to the heavenly demon religion, Amagami has given me too many surprises." Fairy Haoyue stared at Houston deeply and said, "Your Amagami probably isn't as simple as she seems on the surface. I'd advise you to use less of this god artifact. If it's possible, it's best if you abandon it, just in case you end up doomed in the future." Houston immediately became stern. He knew that Fairy Haoyue was a terrifyingly powerful primordial realm expert, so she definitely would not say something like that for no reason. Afterwards, Fairy Haoyue looked at Jianqin and said, "I'm going to leave. The upper echelon of the heavenly demon religion will definitely be alarmed by something like this. If I stay, I'll only cause trouble for you. Be careful." A sliver of hesitation appeared on Fairy Haoyue's face when she reached there. After a while, she said to Jianqin secretly, "I suspect that Amagami is connected to the heavenly demon religion in some way. I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse." Jianqin nodded slightly to express that he understood. In reality, he had the same suspicions as well. After all, the formations that protected the blood and soul beads were so powerful that even chaotic primes would have a slim chance of survival if they entered them. Yet, the Empyrean demon orb was able to move about freely in such a terrifying formation. This did not make sense. If Amagami was a god artifact that specialized in countering formations, it would make sense. However, Jianqin had learnt from the sword spirits that Amagami was the famed treasure of the greatest demon monarch of the demon's world, the celestial demon saint. It possessed both offensive and defensive abilities, and there were no rumors that it could ignore formations. As a result, this could only mean that the formation in the headquarters of the heavenly demon religion had been specially set up to be ineffective against Amagami or a certain cultivation method. However, what Jianqin could not understand was why Amagami and the heavenly demon religion were connected. One was in the demon's world, while the other was in the saint's world. Jianqin did not think too much about the similarity in name. There were countless people with the same name. It was just far too common. After a simple farewell, Fairy Haoyue silently vanished from the room. In the secret room, Jianqin asked about his doubts about how the heavenly demon religion could pass through formations. Unfortunately, Houston was completely clueless about this, as all of this was done by Amagami's artifact spirit. However, when Houston asked the artifact spirit, Amagami's artifact spirit told him that it had seen such a formation before and knew how to break through it. Clearly, no one believed this answer because Houston and the artifact spirit had not attempted to break through the formation at all. Instead, they had just swaggered through the formation in a straight line. Amagami's artifact spirit is hiding a secret from us, Jianshin thought. Afterwards, he took out a space ring and passed it to Houston. He said sternly, "Uncle Xiao, the blood beads and soul beads are on you. It's no longer safe for you to remain here. There are some divine crystals in here. You need to hurry to the Heavenly Moon Empire as soon as possible. Then use the teleportation formation there to go to the Blood Sun Empire. Afterwards, use the teleportation formation in the Blood Sun Empire to go to the Central Region. The Central Region is much more powerful than the 4 major regions. You'll be much safer there. You can use this opportunity to increase your strength." Houston understood the severity of the matter as well, so he did not turn it down. After bidding farewell to everyone, he immediately left the Tianyuan family. He had obtained the blood beads and soul beads, so his priority was to increase his strength as soon as possible. Now that the heavenly demon religion had lost their treasures, it was extremely likely that even more terrifying experts would come. The senses of the soul of a primordial realm expert were terrifying. No matter how well he hid in the southern region, he would not be able to escape from a primordial realm expert's thorough search. Once the blood beads and soul beads were exposed, the consequences would be unthinkable. After Houston left through the teleportation formation in the Tianyuan family's forbidden grounds, Jianshin, Xinjian, and Siyu immediately hurried to the front lines in order to avoid suspicion. Now, the ceasefire of half a month had just come to an end. The divine kingdom of Pingtian had gathered their army once again. They stood guard in the fortress that they had just built, waiting sternly. Several dozen kilometers away from the fortress were the soldiers of the 3 armies of the heavenly demon religion. They gathered there. Endless demonic aura formed thick black clouds, causing the world they resided in to become completely dark. Many divine kings from the divine kingdom of Pingtian had gathered on the fortress. However, when they discovered Jianshin, their attitudes all changed drastically. They all greeted Jianshin with a smile. Jianshin looked over and discovered a few unfamiliar faces among the divine kings. After a simple introduction, he learnt that they were all reinforcements from the empires of the southern region. However, Jianshin was rather perplexed by their friendliness. Even if they knew he had a primordial realm expert behind him, there was no need for them to be so courteous. "Jianshin, I never thought you'd actually defeat a divine king in the northern region. How shocking!" A person from the divine kingdom of Pingtian personally made his way over and smiled at Jianshin. Jianshin only understood when he heard that. The news of him defeating a divine king in the northern region had already reached the southern region. Look over there. The heavenly demon religion seems to have retreated. At this moment, a divine king on the fortress cried out in surprise. Everyone immediately shifted their attention away from Jianshin. They all stared ahead, towards the base of the 3 armies of the heavenly demon religion. With their eyesight, they were naturally able to clearly see everything that was happening dozens of miles away in this open space. Chapter 1968. The sudden retreat of the heavenly demon religion confused the divine king who stood on the walls of the fortress. After half a month of preparation, they had already prepared themselves for a long battle against the heavenly demon religion. However, just when the ceasefire between the divine kingdom of Pingtian and vice leader Huayan had ended and the battle was about to erupt again, the heavenly demon religion that had gained the upper hand suddenly retreated. This unexpected action left the divine king on the walls rather confused. They had no idea what was going on. Even the divine king stared at the army of the heavenly demon religion that had already retreated into the distance. He was filled with doubt and confusion. They've retreated? The heavenly demon religion has retreated just like that? Don't tell me they're plotting something." A divine king on the walls said. He found this rather hard to believe. The old man understood the heavenly demon religion's way of doing things extremely well. The heavenly demon religion is tyrannical on the cloud plane just because they have the support of a great elder. They can destroy anyone they want. However, due to the great elder behind the heavenly demon religion, none of the peak organizations on the cloud plane dared to lay their hands on the heavenly demon religion. As a result, the heavenly demon religion has caused great bloodshed on the cloud plane time and time again in the past several tens of thousand years. They've committed heinous crimes. In particular, the Empyrean demon cult had sent out an unprecedented number of people for the attack this time. Not only had they mobilized all 9 armies to attack the 3 regions, but even their vice leaders had been mobilized as well. This was an extremely rare sight. They have adopted this attitude of not giving up until they achieve their goal. It is absolutely impossible for them to withdraw their troops so easily. The one who spoke was an old man who held a fly whisk in his hand. He had the demeanor of a transcendent being. That's right. The heavenly demon religion's withdrawal is definitely not as simple as it seems on the surface. "We can't let our guard down," another divine king said. The divine king on the fortress expressed his own opinions and guesses, but without exception, no one believed that the heavenly demon religion had really retreated. Even the divine king was no exception. This was because the heavenly demon religion was used to being domineering. Adding on the fact that they had brought such a large force this time, according to their style of doing things, it was absolutely impossible for them to give up on their own accord unless they set off a monstrous massacre that could shake the entire cloud region. Among these people, only Jianqin, Xinjian, and Siyu knew that the heavenly demon religion's withdrawal wasn't because they had other motives or were plotting something. They were truly withdrawing. However, Jianqin had no idea how long the 9 armies would last. He had learnt the secret behind the heavenly demon religion's war from his visit to the heavenly demon religion. Now that the 9 blood beads and soul beads that the heavenly demon religion had spent so much time and effort to refine had been stolen, there were only 2 things they could do. One was to give up on the war and focus all their efforts on searching for the blood beads and soul beads. The other was to continue the war and refine the blood beads and soul beads again. I hope Uncle Xiao is safe in the central region. It's just a pity that we don't have enough 5-colored divine crystals on us, or we would have directly gotten Uncle Xiao to leave the cloud plane and go to other planes. That would have been safer, thought Jianqin. He could only pray for Uncle Xiao right now. There was nothing he could do to help. Just as everyone discussed the heavenly demon religion's withdrawal, a shocking piece of news arrived. The people from the heavenly demon religion had invaded the divine kingdoms in the surroundings and massacred them. They began a boundless slaughter once again, causing rivers of blood to flow in many cities and provincial cities. No one was spared wherever they passed by. Even the imperial cities of a few divine kingdoms suffered. They were completely wiped out by the heavenly demon religion, and the divine king experts who watched over them were surrounded and killed by the protectors of the heavenly demon religion. In the end, 3 of the neighboring divine kingdoms were destroyed, while the other divine kingdoms suffered varying degrees of damage as well. They were all heavily injured. The divine king experts on the city walls were all furious when they heard the news. The divine king sighed gently. There was some helplessness on his face, but he said nothing. The light in Jianqin's eyes flickered. He thought to himself, in terms of time, when the heavenly demon religion attacked these divine kingdoms, it just happened to be when Fairy Haoyue infiltrated the headquarters of the heavenly demon religion. Clearly, they want to collect more soul energy to increase the quality of their blood and soul orbs. They shouldn't be trying to refine them. In the following period of time, the Allied army continued to remain on high alert. They remained in the fortress at all times. Only half a month later did a divine king venture within 10,000 kilometers of the headquarters of the heavenly demon religion. Only after receiving accurate information did everyone believe that the heavenly demon religion had truly retreated. The Divine King and the many Divine Kings who had come as reinforcements all let out a sigh of relief after receiving accurate information. The Divine King immediately clasped his fist at everyone. His face was amiable, but his dignity did not diminish at all. He said, "Everyone, it looks like the war this time has truly come to an end. I would like to thank everyone for your assistance. Your Majesty is far too polite. The heavenly demon religion is vicious. We should all work together against such a vicious demonic cult." An old man clasped his fist at the Divine King. An old man clasped his fist at the Divine King. He spoke extremely politely. He was an elder of the Earth Spirit sect. Of course, he was not one of the 3 elders who had come to the divine kingdom of Pingtian first. Instead, he was one of the divine kings who had come as reinforcements. Afterwards, the elder looked at Jianqin and said apologetically, "Little brother Jianqin, I hope you don't take offense to the incompetent disciples of our Earth Spirit sect." The old man sighed gently when he reached there. "It's a pity that many of the disciples have already died on the battlefield, or my Earth Spirit sect would definitely punish them severely and give little brother Jianqin an explanation." The divine kings on the fortress all looked at Jianqin and the elder of the Earth Spirit sect. They had all heard about the grievances between Jianqin and the Earth Spirit sect. If Jianqin was only a supreme overgod who had barely managed to make it onto the overgod's plaque, the Earth Spirit sect would not take him seriously with their strength, but they would not take him seriously. However, if he was a supreme overgod who possessed startling strength and had the right to rank first on the overgod's plaque, the significance would be completely different. This was because an overgod like that could rival the Divine King. If they broke through in the future and reached the level of Divine King, they would have the right to become a Divine King. It was rumored that the top 10 of the Divine King possessed extremely astonishing strength, enough to fend off early Primordial Realm experts. They could even kill regular Primordial Realm experts with the power of the Divine King. Moreover, Yaxilian had revealed that Jianqin possessed the support of a Primordial Realm expert. The Earth Spirit sect naturally did not want to offend someone like that. Under the attention of all the organizations, Jianqin remained emotionless. He said, "This matter has nothing to do with the dead disciples of the Earth Spirit sect. The true culprit is someone else. Divine King level talismans are so precious that they can't be possessed by just a few disciples." The elder's face immediately stiffened when he heard that. He sighed gently and said nothing more. After bidding farewell to the Divine King, he left with the disciples of the Earth Spirit sect. He knew that the grievances between the Earth Spirit sect and Jianqin could not be settled with just a few words. It was best to leave it to the sect master and the others to deal with. Now that the battle against the heavenly demon religion had ended, the Divine Kings all dispersed, returning to where they had come from. The Divine King arrived before Jianqin and said, "Jianqin, I'll deal with the matters of the battle first. In 3 days, I'll go to the Earth Spirit sect with you." A few people from the Earth Spirit sect disregarded the bigger picture and attacked their own people on the battlefield. "We must get them to give us an explanation for this." Towards the end, the Divine King's voice became rather stern as a vicious light flickered through his eyes. Chapter 1969. With the battle over, Jianqin, Shenzhen, and Siyu returned to the provincial city with the people from the Dong and province. Shenzhen did not stay for long. On the day he returned to the provincial city, he bid farewell to Jianqin and the others before setting off on his own. He went in search of the call that had come from afar. As for Xiongzhong, Cheng Jingyan, and the others from the world of Forsaken Saints, they remained with the Tianyuan family. They were still too weak right now. If they went with their Spirit King, not only would they not be of any help, but they would become a burden instead. After all, Shen Jian wanted to leave the cloud plane this time. He wanted to cross through space and go to places beyond the cloud plane. Danger was everywhere. Jianchen adjusted his condition in the Tianyuan family as he waited for the trip to the Earth Spirit sect in 3 days. At the same time, the 3 vice leaders of the Empyrean demon cult, who watched over the cloud plain, shrouded in dense demonic aura within a dark, secret room in the headquarters of the Empyrean demon cult. They gave off terrifying presences that were as vast as the ocean, causing the air in the room to seem to freeze. What are the higher-ups thinking? The blood and soul beads that our branch spent so much time condensing with the help of the formations personally cast down by the Great Elder have been stolen, yet the Grand Elder hasn't reacted at all. Not only has he not sent chaotic primes to hunt down the person who stole the blood and soul beads, but he hasn't even searched for the blood and soul beads. He's completely indifferent towards the theft of the blood and soul beads. Hasn't all our efforts over the years been wasted? Huayan said. His face was obscured, but his voice was filled with doubt and confusion. Huayan, this isn't something we can interfere with. It's best if you talk less about the higher-ups. If your voice reaches the Grand Elder's ears, he'll probably become displeased, Ihuanyue said indifferently. Then she looked at the 3rd vice leader and said, Elderson, a few days ago, Yaxi was also captured by an unknown infinite prime. According to Yaxi description of the primordial realm expert, do you think the primordial realm expert who broke into our branch and stole the blood beads and soul beads is the same person who captured Yaxi? The vice leader, referred to as Elder Sen, fell silent for a while before replying with his old voice. Yaxi said that the primordial realm expert who captured her used laws with the light of the moon, making them as bright as the moon. The infinite prime who broke into our headquarters also used laws that were as bright as the moon. In my opinion, they're probably the same person. Since they're the same person, it'll be much easier. According to my knowledge, the infinite prime seems to be connected to a person called Jianchen from the divine kingdom of Pingtian, Ihuanyue said mysteriously. Jianchen. It's Jianchen again. Huayan's cold voice rang out. As soon as he mentioned Jianchen, uncontainable killing intent filled his heart. He said, Not only is this Jianchen openly opposing me and protecting Duanmu's successor's clan, but it's also because of him that I was forced to sign a ceasefire with the Divine King for half a month. I even suspect that the infinite prime who stole the blood and soul beads from our heavenly demon religion has something to do with Jianchen as well. This person can't be left alive. Huayan paused before continuing. We only managed to refine the blood and soul beads after a very long time and tremendous effort. We have to find them, or we won't be able to answer to the Great Elder. Since Jianchen is the key to this matter, I'll start with him, Huayan said with heavy killing intent. The blood and soul beads have been stolen. Since the higher-ups aren't looking into it, there's something fishy about this matter. There's probably something we don't know about. Huayan, I think it's best if you don't act recklessly, Elder Sun reminded him kindly. He and Ihuanyue were both unwilling to accept the loss of the blood and soul beads. This was because every single one of the 18 tiny beads contained their blood, sweat, and tears. They had put in so much effort to refine every single one of them, even though they knew that the Great Elder needed the blood and soul beads, and that they would not be able to obtain a single one of them even after they were condensed. It still represented their contributions and efforts. However, both he and Ihuanyue could tell that there was probably something else behind this matter. It was not as simple as it seemed on the surface. So the two of them did not dare to act recklessly. The blood beads and soul beads were protected by formations personally cast down by the Great Elder. Chaotic primes could destroy the castle, but they could not destroy the formations that protected the blood beads and soul beads at all. However, the blood beads and soul beads had been stolen while the formations were still intact. They could not guarantee that this was not purposefully arranged by the higher-ups, or that there was some scheme that they did not know about. The light in Huayan's eyes flickered. After a moment of silence, he nodded slowly. I understand the severity of this matter. The The Blood Sun Empire was located in the center of the southern region. It was the only eternal empire in the southern region of the Cloud Plain. It was surrounded by 6 ancient empires, as well as countless divine kingdoms of various sizes. With a heavy creak, the heavy door to a secret room slowly opened in the depths of a resplendent hall within the imperial palace of the Blood Sun Empire. A middle-aged man in a purple gold robe with a dignified bearing was standing in front of the door with his hands behind his back. When the door of the secret room rose to the highest point and stopped, the middle-aged man walked out unhurriedly. "Greetings to the 9th Prince." 3 middle-aged men had already stood politely outside the secret room. They had been waiting for quite some time now. They all bowed towards the middle-aged man who had emerged from the secret room. The middle-aged man who had just emerged from a secret room in violet robes was the 9th Prince of the Blood Sun Empire. Even though there were over a dozen princes in the Blood Sun Empire, the number of people who were truly outstanding and qualified to become the next emperor could only be counted on one hand. Not only was the 9th Prince the most outstanding and dazzling of them all, but he was also the person that the current emperor valued the most. There were even rumors that once the current emperor of the Blood Sun Empire abdicated, the 9th Prince would definitely become the next emperor. As a result, basically no one among the princes of the Blood Sun Empire could match up to the 9th Prince's current authority. The 9th Prince stood before the 3 of them emotionlessly and said in an authoritative tone, "The 3 of you go to the Een Mountains of Seven's Despair near the Heavenly Moon Empire and retrieve the flower of ways I've been cultivating there." After so many years of preparation, the 9th Prince had already reached the peak of the Divine King. He was only a step away from the primordial realm. This step seemed close, but it was actually as far away as the horizon. It would not be easy to cross it. No matter how astonishing the 9th Prince's talent was, it would take him a very long time to break through the Divine King and reach the primordial realm through his own abilities. The Flower of Ways was the only heavenly resource that could allow him to break through his current bottleneck and reach the primordial realm in the shortest amount of time possible. As soon as the Flower of Ways was mentioned, the expressions of the 3 divine king changed. They looked at one another, and their faces were filled with bitterness. The 9th Prince frowned and said sternly, "Has something happened to the Flower of Ways?" The 3 middle-aged men who were also divine king hesitated slightly before one of them finally mustered up the courage to say, "9th Prince, a primordial realm expert, has taken the Flower of Ways." The 9th Prince's eyes immediately shone with a shocking light when he heard that. A tremendous presence radiated from him like a flash flood. It was extremely terrifying. They were all divine king experts, but the 3 middle-aged men retreated time and time again before the 9th Prince's presence. They felt like mountains were crushing down on them. "Let's go to the Een Mountains of Seven's Despair," the 9th Prince said emotionlessly. The Earth Spirit sect was one of the 2 peak sects in the Heavenly Moon Empire. It possessed an extremely great status within the Heavenly Moon Empire. Even the imperial family of the Heavenly Moon Empire treated the Earth Spirit sect with respect. The Earth Spirit sect occupied the 3,000 spiritual mountains with the densest origin energy in the Heavenly Moon Empire. They used the 3,000 spiritual mountains as the core of the formation and cast down a tremendous protective formation. The formation was so powerful that even regular primordial realm experts would struggle to shake it. Today just happened to be the Earth Spirit sect's once-a-century disciple recruitment ceremony. The small path leading to the Earth Spirit sect was already filled with people. Many young people lined up in an orderly manner, undergoing the various tests set up by the Earth Spirit sect in an orderly fashion. They wanted to join the Earth Spirit sect and become a disciple so that they could bring honor to their ancestors. There was no lack of people from large clans that possessed some status in the Heavenly Moon Empire. They either rode tamed flying beasts that were not weak or sat in luxurious carriages. As a result, there were all sorts of luxurious carriages parked outside the entrance of the Earth Spirit sect, as well as numerous colossal beasts that gave off powerful presences. However, without any exception, no one dared to fly within 1,000 kilometers of the Earth Spirit sect. They all traveled close to the ground. At this moment, a golden streak of light suddenly appeared. It directly flew through the air, directly heading towards the Earth Spirit sect. In the previous moment, it was still far away, but in the next moment, it crossed the huge distance and appeared outside the Earth Spirit sect. It did not land on the ground. Instead, it just hovered in the air, standing at the same height as the tallest mountain in the Earth Spirit sect. At a closer look, this was a golden carriage. It was powered by 9 strange beasts, and every single one of them was extremely powerful. They all possessed the cultivation of over-gods. Who's the person in the carriage? He's actually so impressive. He's actually bold enough to hover in the air before the Earth Spirit sect. That's the same height as the tallest mountain in the Earth Spirit sect. How bold of him! Does he know that his actions are a form of provocation to the Earth Spirit sect? People who are bold enough to do this either know the rules of the Earth Spirit sect or are extremely impressive experts. However, even the emperors of the Heavenly Moon Empire and the elders of the Taoist sect of Calm Clouds wouldn't dare to fly so high. That's the height of the mountain where the ancestor of the Earth Spirit sect sits. For a moment, everyone outside the Earth Spirit sect looked at the golden carriage in the air as they discussed among themselves. However, when the Earth Spirit sect elder in charge of the recruitment ceremony saw the carriage in the sky, not only did he not go up to stop it, but his eyes narrowed instead as his face instantly became stern. He had already recognized the origins of the carriage. As the owner of the carriage, he did indeed possess the right to do something like this. At this moment, the protective formation of the Earth Spirit sect shook, and the entrance to the Earth Spirit sect was completely opened. Only when the Earth Spirit sect was welcoming a person of great status would they do something like this. So it's the Divine King of the Pingtian. Your arrival really brings light to my Earth Spirit sect. Please come in, Divine King. With a clear laugh, the current sect master of the Earth Spirit sect flew out with over a dozen elders. Every single one of them was filled with enthusiasm. In the past, the Earth Spirit sect would never have welcomed the Divine King with such a great array before he had broken through to the primordial realm. Chapter 1970. What? The person in the carriage is actually the Divine King. It's said that the Divine King has already broken through to the primordial realm, becoming an infinite prime. He's on the same level as the ancestor of the Earth Spirit sect. So it's the Divine King. I knew it. Who would be bold enough to not only enter the territory of the Earth Spirit sect, but they're even flying in the sky. Moreover, they're flying at the same height as the tallest mountain in the Earth Spirit sect. Heavens, is there really a primordial realm expert in the golden carriage in the sky? That's a legendary figure. Many people won't even be able to see one in their entire lives. As the sect master's voice boomed through the surroundings, the countless young people who had come to join the Earth Spirit sect and the seniors who had escorted them heard it clearly. Immediately, a great discussion broke out among the crowd. At that moment, the eyes of countless people lit up when they looked at the golden carriage. They were filled with excitement, envy, reverence, and admiration. The primordial realm was a legendary figure to many of them. With their statuses, they did not even have the right to see an expert like that. The Divine King's carriage was received warmly by the elders, personally led by the sect master. It drove through the entrance of the Earth Spirit sect, disappearing before everyone's eyes. At the very center of the 3,000 spiritual mountains of the Earth Spirit sect, there was a huge mountain peak that had been forcefully cut in half. The Divine King's golden carriage slowly came to a stop. As the door opened, the white-robed Gentian and the Divine King in his dragon robes emerged. The sect master of the Earth Spirit sect was a scholarly, middle-aged man. Right now, he was smiling from ear to ear. Just when he was about to speak, The light in the surroundings suddenly became extraordinarily bright. It was as if a huge sun hung in the Earth Spirit sect, causing the light there to be 2 or 3 times brighter than outside. Jianqin seemed to sense something. He looked over and saw a ruddy old man in the distance. He shone with dazzling light as if there was a sun around him. He flew over from afar, and the light he gave off was so powerful that it completely outshone the sun in the sky, causing the surroundings to dim. Jianqin's eyes suddenly narrowed the moment he saw the old man. Even though the old man only shone with dazzling light, he did not give off any presence at all. As a result, he seemed like an ordinary person. However, Jianqin could tell with a single glance that the old man's strength had surpassed the Divine King. He had reached the primordial realm. When the sect master and the elders sensed the old man's arrival, they immediately became respectful. They all bowed towards the old man. "Greetings to the ancestor." The ancestor moved extremely quickly. With just a single step, he crossed a huge distance and appeared before Jianqin and the Divine King. He glanced past Jianqin casually before directly looking at the Divine King. However, his casual glance made Jianqin's heart thump violently. At that moment, he actually felt like he was suffocating, and he even lost control over his body. The primordial realm really is powerful. Before an expert like that, I really am an ant, thought Jianqin. He had seen many primordial realm experts in the past, let alone the Divine King and Huayan. He had seen several primordial realm experts in the northern region alone. There was even an even more terrifying chaotic prime. However, none of these primordial realm experts had purposefully released their presences, so Jianqin was unable to sense them too deeply. However, the ancestor of the Earth Spirit sect had released his primordial realm aura as soon as he saw Jianqin. Even though it was only for a split second, it was enough for Jianqin to sense the power of the primordial realm. "Ping Tian, congratulations on reaching this level of cultivation. I believe a 7th ancient empire will appear in our southern region before long." The ancestor of the Earth Spirit sect clasped his fist at the Divine King before inviting him into the hall. Everyone took their seats in the hall. As expected, the ancestor of the Earth Spirit sect and the Divine King sat in the same position. There was no difference between them. "Sang Tu, let's cut to the chase. You should know why I've come this time." The Divine King directly cut to the chase as soon as he sat down. The ancestor of the Earth Spirit sect remained silent. He said nothing. "Your Majesty, what happened on the battlefield was indeed the fault of the disciples of our Earth Spirit sect. Our Earth Spirit sect is willing to make up for the injuries Brother Jianqin suffered. Moreover, even the protector who used the Divine King level talisman to launch a sneak attack on Brother Jianqin has been expelled from our sect. From today onwards, she is no longer a disciple of our Earth Spirit sect. May I ask if Brother Jianqin and your Majesty are satisfied with this?" said the ancestor. The Divine King looked at Jianqin. Clearly, he was asking for Jianqin's opinion. Jianqin sneered. "How precious is a Divine King level talisman? How can it end up in the hands of an over-god so easily? Moreover, it's not even a powerful over-god. As a result, the true culprits aren't the protectors. Instead, it's the elders who ordered them to do this." The sect master became stern when he heard that. He asked sternly, "Brother Jianqin, may I ask if you have any evidence to prove that the people behind this are elders of our Earth Spirit sect? If you jump to conclusions just from a Divine King level talisman, I'm afraid you're being a little too hasty." "Hasty? I don't find it hasty at all. Instead, I find Jianqin's words reasonable," the Divine King said firmly. The sect master's expression changed again and again. Once the matter was related to an elder's mission, it would become rather troublesome to deal with. If there were some protectors who were over gods, their Earth Spirit sect could give up on a few of them. However, the Divine King level experts were the pillars of the Earth Spirit sect. Losing even one of them would affect the sect's strength. The elders of the Earth Spirit sect, who sat in the hall, all became stern. "Bring me Mu-Ku." At this moment, the ancestor of the Earth Spirit sect suddenly said. He remained indifferent. Mu-Ku was one of the elders of the Earth Spirit sect, as well as the master of the 7 protectors who had caused trouble in the Dong and province. The sect master's face immediately changed. After hesitating slightly, he sent someone to invite Elder Mu over in the end. Very soon, Elder Mu entered the hall. After bowing towards the ancestor of the Earth Spirit sect, he stood there with a sunken face. "Genshin, the culprits you speak of, the master of the protectors, is here. Do you plan on doing it yourself, or do you plan on getting Pingtian to do it for you?" The ancestor said indifferently, "Ancestor, we still haven't investigated this matter." The sect master said with a sliver of urgency. This was an elder of the Divine King. He could not hand him over so easily. Chapter 1971. "If that's the case, I'll be taking this person back," said the Divine King. He was decisive, immediately taking action to capture Mu-Ku. However, just when the Divine King was about to take action, the ancestor of the Earth Spirit sect suddenly said, "Pingtian, don't you think it's beneath you to take action against a Divine King as a primordial realm expert?" The Divine King frowned when he heard that. He said emotionlessly, "Sang-tu, what do you mean by that? Do you want Genshin to take on a Divine King as an overgod?" It's rumored that although Genshin hasn't attempted the overgod's plaque, he's so powerful that he can take on the supreme overgods who rank first on the overgod's plaque. Moreover, not long ago, he had even defeated a god king in the northern region. As a result, it'll be rather fair if Genshin fights Mu-Ku, the ancestor of the Earth Spirit sect said calmly. Then he looked at the Divine King and continued. Although Mu-Ku is a Divine King, he's only an early Divine King, and he's not a Divine King. As a result, if you take action, it'll be beneath you. Mu-Ku, the ancestor of the Earth Spirit sect, looked at Mu-Ku. He gave off an unquestionable sense of dignity. "Ancestor." Elder Mu-Ku bowed politely. "Mu-Ku, in the battle between the divine kingdom of Pingtian and the heavenly demon religion, your disciples disregarded the bigger picture and attacked people from their alliance regardless of the situation. As their master, you don't restrain your disciples properly, allowing them to commit such a great mistake. You can't just resign. You need to give Genshin an explanation for this," said the ancestor. "Yes, ancestor." Mu-Ku replied politely. He dared not disobey at all. "Genshin, the explanation I'll give you is for you to fight Mu-Ku to the death. What do you think?" The ancestor said to Genshin. Genshin stood up and stared at the ancestor of the Earth Spirit sect with shining eyes. Not only was there no fear on his face, but there was even some sharpness instead. He said coldly, "Since that's the case, let me see just how powerful your Earth Spirit sect's Divine King is." Genshin glared fiercely at Elder Mu-Ku. A powerful sword intent radiated from his body as he coldly said, "Mu-Ku, come out and fight!" Sharpness filled Elder Mu's eyes as well. He said, "Old Man would also like to see the supreme prodigy, who is rumored to be ranked first on the Overgod's plaque. I want to see if he's really as powerful as the rumors say, where he can defeat the Divine King as an overgod." As soon as he finished speaking, Elder Mu-Ku walked out of the hall. "Mu-Ku, you can only lose this battle. You can't win." However, at this moment, the ancestor's voice rang out in Mu-Ku's head secretly. The voice came from an infinite prime who had reached the Divine King many years ago. Even the Divine King was unable to hear what it said, let alone the other Divine King elders. Therefore, Mu-Ku was the only one who could clearly hear the voice transmission. Elder Mu-Ku's body immediately stiffened. His expression rapidly changed a few times before it returned to normal. He felt a wave of sadness in his heart. There were many rings of various sizes in the Earth Spirit sect. They were specially for the disciples to spar with. At this moment, Jianqin and Elder Mu Ku faced one another on the largest ring. The entire ring was enveloped by a barrier personally cast down by the ancestor of the Earth Spirit sect. The barrier was so powerful that it was difficult for the Divine King to get through. It could easily endure the shock waves from the battle inside. Basically, all the elders of the Earth Spirit sect had gathered around the ring. Even the elders who were in seclusion emerged and came to watch the battle. If it were a battle between a Divine King and a Divine King, the elders would not have paid so much attention to it. However, a battle between a supreme overgod who could contend for first place on the overgod's plaque and a Divine King was enough to attract the attention of many Divine Kings. As a matter of fact, even primordial realm experts would pay some attention. Mu Ku's face was extremely sunken as he stood on the stage. The message from the ancestor of the Earth Spirit sect still echoed in his head. A single sentence from the ancestor had directly ended his life, filling him with despair. I really never would have thought that not only did I fail to kill Jianqin when I ordered my disciples to attack Jianqin back then, but I ended up doomed instead. I was mercilessly abandoned by the sect. Our disciples were humiliated. Isn't our Earth Spirit sect losing face? Old Man's actions were completely for the sake of saving the Earth Spirit sect's face. He didn't want others to use the name of the Earth Spirit sect to make a name for themselves. However, he ended up sending himself to his grave in the end. Elder Mu Ku sighed inside. At this moment, his heart was filled with indescribable bitterness. But soon after, his gaze became extremely cold. A powerful pressure that belonged to the Divine King realm radiated from his body. The laws turned into divine chains that revolved around him as he stared at Jianqin with shining eyes. He thought, Old Man is a Divine King realm expert. Even if I can't win this battle, I can't let Jianqin win so easily. Old Man will still use his full strength in this battle. Elder Mu Ku moved. He wielded a wooden staff as he charged at Jianqin with surging battle intent. The terrifying cultivation of the Divine King realm surged out from his body, condensing on the wooden staff in his hand in a single instance. With the laws on the level of the Divine King, he stabbed it towards Jianqin with overwhelming force. Elder Mu Ku did not hold back at all. He used his full strength, causing the strike to be extraordinarily powerful. When he struck out with the wooden staff, the terrifying energy within it actually affected the space in the ring, causing it to distort. Outside the ring, the ancestor of the Earth Spirit sect and the Divine King both frowned slightly. The two of them could naturally tell that Mu Ku was using his full strength. They had no idea whether Jianqin could really deal with Mu Ku when he was so powerful. Although it was rumored that Jianqin had defeated a Divine King in the northern region, it was only a rumor in the end. In reality, they had no idea whether the rumor was exaggerated or whether the Divine King was injured or not. As for being able to contend with the supreme overgod who ranked first on the overgod's plaque, that was only used to describe Jianqin's strength. Jianqin had not even attempted the overgod's plaque after all. Just what was his ranking on the overgod's plaque with his true strength? Did he really have the right to contend with the person ranked first? None of this had been decided yet. Does this Mu Ku want to go against me? The Earth Spirit sect's ancestors' heart sank slightly. Specks of cold light flickered in his deep, ink-black eyes. Jianqin's face did not change at all as he faced Elder Mu Ku's aggressive strike. He wielded the startling rainbow sword and protected himself with light as he stabbed out with composure. The strike was simple and plain, without any extravagance at all. However, it was this simple strike that possessed extremely deep mysteries of the laws of the sword. It was also compatible with the laws of the sword, coupled with the powerful and destructive chaotic force. The might of Jianqin's strike had completely surpassed the level of overgods. It had barely reached the level of the Divine King. Chapter 1972. The moment Jianqin and Ku Mu struck out, the elders of the Earth Spirit sect all narrowed their eyes. Not only did they focus on the battle between the two of them, but they even expanded the senses of their souls into the surroundings of the stage. They wanted to see the battle between the two of them clearly without missing a single trace. This was because this was an unprecedented battle where an over-god challenged a god-king. Even with the entire Saints world in perspective, a battle like this was extremely rare. After all, basically all the people who had the right to challenge a divine king as over-gods were supreme prodigies who ranked in the top 10 of the over-gods plaque. Even the divine king and the ancestor of the earth spirit sect stared at the stage. They wanted to personally witness whether Jianqin possessed the legendary strength to defeat a divine king of the northern region as an over-god. Boom! Under everyone's close attention, Jianqin and Elder Mu finally clashed for the first time. A violent rumble immediately erupted in the stage as powerful ripples of energy wreaked havoc in a visible shockwave. Jianqin and Mu Ku both used laws to protect themselves. Energy flickered on their bodies as they stood as still as mountains. Not only did Jianqin block Mu Ku's full-powered strike perfectly, but he even seemed to be evenly matched with Mu Ku. Mu Ku's eyes immediately narrowed after the strike. His gaze towards Jianqin finally became stern. He truly understood Jianqin's strength from the clash this time. He understood that Jianqin was not just famous. Instead, he really did possess the strength to fight against a divine king. Jianqin was emotionless. His eyes shone with icy cold light. They were as sharp as swords. He stopped Elder Mu's staff with the startling rainbow sword as he formed a seal with his other hand. Immediately, a strand of golden sword chi condensed above his head. It radiated with powerful sword intent. The sword intent was so powerful that even Elder Mu's expression changed slightly as a divine king. He could clearly sense that the golden sword chi above Jianqin's head was so powerful that it could threaten him. Elder Mu reacted extremely quickly. As soon as Jianqin condensed the Daluo sword, he bellowed out and suddenly retreated. At the same time, he swung his staff. Strands of the power of laws wove together, rapidly condensing into a huge piece of wood. When the wood appeared, the might of the world immediately accompanied it. The power within it was so great that it was enough to make any early divine king of the earth spirit sect change their expression. Jianqin's Daluo sword had directly forced Mu Ku to use a battle skill as well. Mu Ku has actually used a battle skill. It looks like Jianqin really does have some ability. He's actually forced a divine king to use a battle skill as an over-god. He really is someone who can contend for first place on the over-gods plaque after all. He really is very powerful. Jianqin really does live up to his name. So what if he doesn't live up to his name? Although the prodigies who rank towards the top of the over-gods plaque possess the right to kill a divine king, that's only an ordinary divine king. Mu Ku is not an ordinary divine king. He has comprehended the various cultivation methods and battle skills of our Earth Spirit sect. Although he's not one of the most powerful early divine king, he's no ordinary person either. That's right. If Mu Ku didn't use a battle skill, Jianqin would indeed be able to match Mu Ku. However, since Mu Ku has used a battle skill, Jianqin is definitely going to lose many of the divine king elders of the Earth Spirit sect side in amazement. This was the first time they had seen such a powerful over-god fight a divine king as an over-god and force a divine king to use a battle skill. After all, they had only heard rumors about battles between over-gods and divine kings in the past. Moreover, many of the rumors were exaggerated. However, when the ancestor of the Earth Spirit sect saw how Mu Ku not only did not follow his orders, but he also became more and more valiant as he fought, as if he would not give up until he defeated Jianqin, his eyes could not help but become rather sunken. Go! At this moment, Mu Ku called out from the ring. As he extended a finger, the huge piece of wood immediately shone with green light. It turned into a streak of light and shot towards Jianqin with unbelievable speed. Boom! The huge piece of wood collided with the Daluo sword, erupting with a deafening sound. The entire ring shook violently from their attacks, and web-like cracks appeared on the ground. However, Genshin's attacks were as violent as a storm. Before the first wave had even subsided, another wave rose up. As soon as the Daluo sword collided with the huge piece of wood, a streak of light enveloped Genshin's body. Afterwards, he turned into a bolt of lightning and shot off with unbelievable speed. How is Genshin so powerful? He's even blocked Old Man's battle skill. He's only an overgod. Muku sighed in amazement at Genshin's strength. He knew that with the ancestors' orders, he could only lose this battle. However, he did not want to lose too miserably. Originally, he wanted to use his cultivation as a divine king to heavily injure Genshin before giving up on resisting before everyone. Losing to Genshin like that. He wanted to tell everyone just how helpless and powerless he was about to lose. It was not because he was not Genshin's opponent. However, he had never thought that Genshin's strength would completely exceed his expectations. He had already used his full strength and even used his battle skill, but he was still able to match Genshin. He did not gain any advantage at all. However, just as Muku sighed in amazement, his eyes suddenly narrowed. A streak of light suddenly shot over with unbelievable speed from up ahead. It pierced through Elder Muku's body in a single instance. It was fast. It was just far too fast. The streak of light was so fast that even with Muku's cultivation as a divine king, he was unable to catch it with his naked eye. Although he could sense it with the senses of his soul, he did not have any time to react at such a short distance. Muku's body stiffened. He lowered his head as he stared at the bull-sized hole in his chest in shock. He struggled to accept this outcome. How did this happen? What secret technique did Genshin use earlier? It's actually so fast. Outside the ring, all the elders of the Earth Spirit sect were shocked as well. Such an outcome had completely exceeded their expectations as well. Muku has lost this battle. The ancestor of the Earth Spirit sect stood up and announced the outcome of the battle. At the same time, he finally let out a sigh of relief inside. Genshin, according to the rules from before, Muku's life is now up to you to decide, the ancestor said to Genshin. At the same time, he removed the barrier around the stage. Genshin, are you fine? The divine king appeared before Genshin silently and asked in concern. Thank you for your concern, your majesty. I'm fine, said Genshin. Then he looked at Muku as cold light flickered through his eyes. Muku turned around in a daze. He stared at Genshin with gloomy eyes and said, Genshin, do it. With that, Muku closed his eyes and fell silent. Brother Genshin, please show mercy and spare Sumuku's life. We will definitely be eternally grateful. Brother Genshin, please spare us. We're willing to compensate you in other ways. We just hope that you spare Muku's life. Many of the Divine King's elders in the Earth Spirit sect pleaded for mercy. Even the master of the Earth Spirit sect looked at the ancestor of the Earth Spirit sect, hoping that he could step forward and save Muku. The Divine King was a pillar of support for the Earth Spirit sect. He was extremely valued. The ancestor of the Earth Spirit sect remained emotionless. He said nothing.